Hi, everybody. It's 6:30. Before we begin tonight, I'd like to have a moment of silence for Erica Uscali, who is a dedicated administrator here in the district who we lost suddenly and unexpectedly. So please just take a moment to honor her. Thank you very much. Roll call, please.
Member Hasanaka.
Here.
Member Langendorf. Here. Member Jones.
Here.
Member Baxley.
Here.
Member Staton. Not here. Vice President Exxon.
Here.
President Pulowski.
Here. Are there any additions, corrections, or modifications to tonight's agenda? Hearing none, the chair would entertain a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
Move for approval of the agenda.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. There will be no call to go to an executive session tonight. It is now time for citizen statements. If anybody would like to make a statement before the board, there is a set of goldenrod sheets in the back of the room. Please fill one out and hand it to our recording secretary, Lori Johnson, and we will add you to the list. First up is Rakaya Perkins-Williams.
Okay, thank you. Good evening to all the board members, the students who are here representing. And District Executive Administrative Team, my name is Rakaya Perkins-Williams, and I am a former Wiley parent of two students, members of the former Wiley Strong Group, current UMS and UHS parent, and I also served as one of the co-chairs for the Recent Facilities Committee. Tonight you will hear the final recommendation of that committee will bring forth, but I am not here to speak about that in this present moment. Right now, I want to discuss my thoughts on this entire process. First, I'd like to say that I have learned by working very closely with Dr. Ivory Tatum that I do not now or ever have any aspirations to the superintendency. Dr. Ivory Tatum is a very smart woman who has to make a multitude of tough choices every day. Some choices lead to praise and others to criticism. Her executive administrative team, Katie Rowland, John Guzmer, Kim Norton specifically, are all working very hard, often in multiple positions that are outside of their actual formal roles and responsibilities. I've come to respect the tensions that they deal with on a day-to-day basis that are inherent in their roles. I also got to know Board President Paul Pulowski a little bit better, so please take this critique as critical feedback versus criticism. This committee was not, as I repeatedly said before, about asbestos. It was not even about, in my opinion, Wiley. This committee was about having a tough conversation and moving that tough conversation into a form that was wholly inappropriate. The conversations we should have been having in February were conversations about district finances, how to repair community trust, and I felt like this committee used community members to do the heavy lifting that the board and administrative team should have done. My co-chair and I, we are not district employees, we're community members. We're not feasibility specialists, we do not have special technical knowledge, we're moms who sacrifice a great deal along with a lot of the other community members to have this conversation that should have been had very openly and very transparently with the members of this community. As you'll find out on my in our report, the conversation that we had allowed us to discover a great deal about the inner workings of this district. And those things were not necessarily shocking, but they should have been shared publicly at the time and place that the initial conversation happened. I hope that moving forward, when we have to have tough conversations, the board and the administrative team will have the courage to have the very specific conversations that need to be had and not try to use a different process to avoid having those conversations. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments and for your service. Next up is Jennifer Hickson.
Hello. The board will be presented tonight with another big idea. There have been so many lately. Big ideas that seemingly come out of nowhere that will magically solve all our problems about some new issue and must be considered on a very tight timeline that is being set by outside forces, not us. You will hear from the report from the District Facilities Committee, made up mostly of district employees and a great number of them administrators, many never having taught in any classroom. Lots of secondary staff. You will not have a lot of time to think about this. I am here to ask you to please ask the following questions while you are considering the move that the administration is putting before you. I am hoping that you will ask the questions because as a citizen, I am allowed to ask a question, but I am not entitled to an answer in real time. There have been no open meetings that allow discussion between the general public, the administration, and the board. So number one, will this move address needs in terms of academic achievement for all students? If yes, then how? If no, then why are we doing it? Two, will this move address district needs in terms of social emotional learning for all students? If yes, then how? Number three, is this move based on research? If yes, what research? Please make that research available to the community. I have looked for research in this area and I couldn't find any to support a sixth grade center. Number four, should the district be making a move based on a hunch? If we can't find research, should we try to visit a sixth grade center and talk to teachers and staff before we spend the extra money to remodel a school for one? Number five, have we examined the dual language and district equity audits to see if this move will address broadly the concerns and suggestions that were presented to us? As a former staff member and former parent and an interested community member, I am very concerned about the lack of academic achievement that is happening in all of our schools. All our decisions now must be based on raising academic achievement for all students and improving the social emotional learning environment for all students. And we should be making decisions with clear eyes, open hearts, and rational heads, not haste or hunch or even dreams. Some members of the K-5 subgroup of the Facilities Committee have brought together some relevant numbers for everyone to consider about class size, academic achievement, and other issues in the Urbana schools. But they were told that there was not enough time in tonight's meeting to present them. I got a copy. I have made copies of their background report for the board. Some highlights from their report are, one, many districts that tried sixth grade centers in Illinois have already closed them. Two, losing an elementary building will increase class size for all elementary schools. As you read the numbers presented in the report, please remember that we do have research that supports the following things. One, smaller class size improves academic achievement. Two, fewer transitions support academic achievement and social emotional welfare. Three, better academic achievement supports fewer behavioral problems. I think that the presentation slides that illustrate the report that I'm going to give Lori are on the district website somewhere in connection with this meeting. I was told that it is in an external, I copied this down, It is in an external link in the appendix under Community Prepared. Now, it was prepared by people on the committee, but it's labeled Community Prepared. I couldn't find it. So if people in the community want to see it, and you can't, you're almost 77 like I am, and you couldn't find it, you could call Lori at the district office, and maybe she could help you. And I'm going to give these to Lori and ask her to give them to the board, and this is the report. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next up is Peggy Patton. If anybody else would like to address the board, please fill out a goldenrod sheet in the back of the room and hand it to Lori Johnson.
Good evening. My name is Peggy Patton. I'm a resident of Urbana. I understand the board's going to receive the final report from the Wiley Facilities Committee later this evening, and my comments are as a member of that committee. First off, let me say I appreciated the structure, the process, and leadership of the Wiley Facilities Committee. The charge for the committee was an ambitious one. A wide net was cast in forming the committee, which had over 60 members, at least initially, representing community members, parents, teachers, and administrators from various district schools. While the perspective of the many parents and community members, and indeed that was the hat I was wearing as a community member, those perspectives of the parents and community members enriched the discussions about future programming options for Wiley School, I found the input of the teachers, administrators, and support staff in our schools to be especially beneficial. Their daily experience as professionals in the district helped me understand the impact that various options for one of our elementary schools would have on our district. That expertise and scope of vision, in my view, were essential to a fully informed recommendation to the Board of Education. And I hope the committee's final report excuse me, informs the path forward for Wiley School. I'd also like to comment on the Freedom of Information Act, FOIA, requests related to the formation of the Wiley Facilities Committee. These are spelled out on the Board of Education's business meeting agendas going back to at least May 16th. I am a firm believer in the rights of individuals to request access to public records, and I acknowledge the real benefit that we, the public, can derive from information accessed through FOIA. When I learn about FOIA requests, either as a member of a public body or as a citizen desiring information about our public bodies, I try to measure the cost of the FOIA request against the value of information received. In the case of FOIA requests, in the case of FOIA requests of our school district, I always ask myself two questions. Does the information received through this FOIA request justify the hundreds, sometimes thousands of dollars in time spent by district administrative staff and district legal counsel? I also ask myself, would I prefer that our district staff devote the hours responding to this FOIA request instead of using their time on any of the numerous other pressing issues in the district? I have long advocated for publicizing the costs involved in responding to FOIA requests so that we, the public, can effectively weigh those competing interests. Were the time and financial resources expended in responding to the FOIA requests related to the formation of the Wiley Facility Committee the best use of taxpayer dollars? I didn't think so. But thank you to the Board of Education for your service to schools, and good luck on your decision tonight.
Hi, my name is Julie Duvall. I am a parent of multiple students here in Urbana. I am also, I was asked to be at the, I don't remember the day of the meeting, but Paul had asked when we had this committee started that he wanted people that were that would be upfront, be honest, and rip Urbana apart. The next day, Dr. Ivory Tatum called me and asked if I would be the SPED rep at this on the facilities meeting. I'm not prepared to give you my official report this evening, but I did want to just bring some light as you guys are looking at this report to keep some things in mind. This was a really difficult process. I was actually rather excited to be on this and to be a part of this team, and it very quickly became a scary experience. While I too agree with FOIA, One of the decisions that were made were that staff emails could be disclosed. My personal email was leaked. And every email that staff members got, I received 2. I kind of took it as a form of harassment, bullying. At this point, nobody trusts anybody. Dr. J made a decision that whoever made the decision, and she should have made it more open and talked about. But nobody's here's hands are clean. And there's a lot of he said, she said, and this fight and this fight. These are students' lives. And the district did a really good job trying to get the Wiley teachers placed and students placed in other buildings. I just wanted to bring to your attention that I agree more time should have been considered. I also think that the board needs to support its students. Whatever in-board fighting, and this is difficult. Schools are tough. We talk about the information that was given in these meetings. Nobody knows the dynamics of Urbana better than Urbana. So when you're talking about what happened in Chicago or what happened in Harrisburg, Illinois, that's not Urbana. You all were voted by citizens in our town to represent us. And while that other information is correct, we're broken. We're not working. At least people in our district were trying to make a difference. And maybe mistakes were made, but they also tried to get everybody together and to have a conversation. But then other people made that dirty and a scary process. Again, I won't give you my whole opinion until the next time. But there was information this was very tainted information. You will look in the elementary K through 5, there are 2 reports. I, as a SPED rep, purposely stayed in the group that I was in, but I looked at every group, every chart. I would go home the next day and look at all the information. The final report, there are 2 for the elementary school. That is because as a group, one was made, and then a couple of people did not agree with that group decision. So they took the information that was made as a group and then tweaked it and gave their opinion. I'm all about everyone having their opinion, and I can only speak about the SPED information. But the SPED information provided on the second report was not accurate information. And we tried to address that. There were multiples of us. I only spoke about SPED, but other people in other areas tried to give their opinion to address this information. I'm not exactly sure why we're all supposed to get together and have a committee and all come up to, every group was able to unify a decision except elementary. And why 2 people outside of the group together, like this was, for them to complain that Dr. Ivory Tatum did this and made this mess, they're over there making it dirty and slighted as well. And so I just wanted to be fair and say that everybody's voices were heard. I had to pull the ADA card in a subcommittee for people to hear what I had to say. I think there's a lack of our community. We have split our community over this. And I don't know how you're ever going to get a committee again. Paul, it was atrocious. Admins, I'm just a parent and a community member. And the stuff, it was bullying. So again, I will give you my official report. I just think that this was a process that we did the best that we could in light of what we had. And no one is more of an expert on Urbana but Urbana. So as you're looking at the data, remember all the things that you've heard and said or heard people say and put that towards your people. We're all individuals. We make Urbana, not Chicago, not other towns, not other states, us. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Julie. Next up is Mike Anderson.
Hello, I want to thank you all for your service and listening to me tonight. My name is Mike Anderson. I have 2 children in the Urbana School District. You might remember me from previous board meetings and the following logical, well-thought-out questions that still awaiting answers, still waiting complete answers on. Why did we rush to close Wiley this spring? The school board justified it due to the hazardous health conditions that they claimed were present, even though the certified board stated there is no health concern related to asbestos in that building. If there's an actual concern for our students, for health and safety for our students in Jack and Wiley, District would replace or restore Wiley's leaking roof in spring 23, fall 22, or any of the previous years that roofs were leaking. Why couldn't we wait one more year to close Wiley for the asbestos abatement and necessary renovations until a definite plan was drawn up and approved as to what Wiley would become? There are no safety or health reasons to rush this long-lasting $20 million decision. Was it to continue the pandemic trend of making reactionary decisions to ever-evolving issues? Obviously, from all the public comments this past spring, we as a public did not see a justification in so hastily and closing Wiley down without plan in place. Was it to cut staff, to offset the budget deficits? Was it to force the planning process to be rushed or incomplete?
Oh, I'm gonna start off. Sorry. You guys hear me okay? Was it forced? As a professional facility manager, I brought up several serious concerns with the rush renovation timeline that was brought up this spring. There are still significant delays on building materials. Last I heard, HVAC components, roofing insulation, windows and doors all have very long lead times. How was the district going to order HVAC equipment that needs to be sized to the building and as load when the final building size and its use has not been finalized? What is the plan if there are delays, material, or labor? Was the plan to roll the dice and hope that Wiley wouldn't have been closed for 2 years? I'm still waiting to hear about the Reimagine Wiley Committee that was presented to us in February and how that became the Special Facilities Planning Committee after the vote to close Wiley happened. Also, what happened to the plan that was presented on February 7th for the administration to work with the Wiley community and building leaders to intentionally find creative ways to keep the Wiley families connected during the asbestos abatement project? Last I asked these two questions, I was told that the board does not answer questions during the meeting. I waited several hours until the end of that meeting and I still never got any answers. These are all questions that I have asked before. The public is still waiting for those answers. Here are some new questions that I really hope the board will ask the admin and hold them accountable to their answers. During the February 15th meeting between Wiley parents and Dr. Avery Tatum, we brought up very serious concerns about having crossing guards at Florida and Philo Road if our students are going to have to walk to and from Thomas Paine Elementary. Dr. Avery Tatum stated we would have crossing guards at Florida and Philo. As of today, there are still no crossing guards at Philo in Florida. I counted 17 students that crossed there the other day. When I talked to the district about it on Friday, I did not get a response till Monday after 5 that they are hoping to have somebody fill in their temporary until they can get the position filled, but they are having a hard time finding applicants. My question to the board is, do you find it acceptable to have just leave the 17 students on their own to cross that busy intersection, or should the district do better? If I were in charge, I would pull someone from support staff, admin, or even myself, someone off their normal duties, to make sure that every child could safely cross those intersections that warrant a crossing guard. Or should we just wait for an accident and investigation to then see who should be held accountable for anything? There are several things I think this board should be aware about the district facility committee that was charged to review the comprehensive needs of all USD buildings and programs. For transparency, I will say I was a group leader in the 6-8 group. We started talking about all the known issues in the current middle school and other school districts are set up, i.e. K-8, K-6 with a 7-8, K-4 with a 5-6 and a separate 7-8. We started talking about researching what is shown to be the best practice and how the best data results across many metrics such as test scores, disciplinary referrals, truancy, graduation rates, teacher retention, and what is needed most by SPED students and those with IEPs. But due to the lack of time, the group voted in the first meeting to only focus on researching the pros and cons of making Wiley a 6th grade center. I want to make it clear that the 6-8 subgroup only researched and then presented the 6th grade center center option due to lack of time. It did not research all possible options that may benefit the middle school, so there is no data that shows a 6th grade center is the best option for our students, just that is a possible option. Personally, I feel that overloading the elementary schools in the hopes that it solves some of the issues in the middle school is a risk we shouldn't take without more research and the recommendation of a professional consulting firm. I think we should be taking this opportunity to make educated, evidence-based, long-term district-wide plans to address as many issues as we can. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Janelle Elliott.
My name is Janelle Elliott. I haven't been an Urbana resident since 2007 and have 5 kids ranging from 2 years old to 7th grade, so we have a lot of time left here in the district. Our elementary school right now is Yankee Ridge. I also happen to have been a co-chair on the most recent facilities committee, which turns out to be one of the most challenging roles I've had. It might have rivaled raising 6 kids this summer. On the committee, we were asked to examine and determine what the greatest need in our district is that can be met with the use of the building of Wiley and a potential $20 million bond. Later tonight, we'll share with you what the committee found to be the greatest need. But for anyone who had asked me the question in a more general sense, what do you think the greatest need is? My answer would be rebuilding trust. I've learned a lot in this process, more than I probably wanted to, about leadership and people in the Urbana district. Again, just very challenging committee to lead. I had the privilege of meeting so many leaders in our district. I spent meetings with the superintendent team, many who I've never had personal conversations with, lots of hours on the phone with Paul as he guided me through the process, as I've never even been on a committee. Met new school board members at the committee, talked to teachers from every school, talked to many administrators and parents as well. I have been really encouraged by all of the people who care so deeply about Urbana students and schools. We, you guys being some of the main ones, have so many people who give so much of their time and energy to our students in our schools. Thank you for doing that. But I've also been simultaneously been discouraged by the lack of trust found between many of these same groups of people. A lot has happened over the years, most I don't know about, and some have said that we perhaps haven't recovered trust back from years ago. I can only speak to what I've kind of watched from a distance this past year, and it seems to be a further deterioration of trust. Being on the committee gave me a front row seat to the deep needs of our students. It's hard now, and I'm sure you already knew this information, knowing the deep needs of our students, while also knowing that we can't realistically address all of them right now, even if we were operating at full strength. But I would argue that we are not operating at even close to full strength right now. Operating at maximum capacity has to start with healthy leaders who have healthy relationships, relationships where conflict is common, but addressed quickly and openly. I can't pretend to know how we got here, and I know that I don't understand the half of how difficult your jobs are. I have grown in respect for the volunteer hours that the board puts in and for the superintendent team and how much work they put in. And I could never do it. Writing one report was more than I could really do. So it's a rare person who can and is willing to do your jobs. But as the leaders, I also look to you to take the lead on rebuilding trust. Intention versus impact is a phrase that's been helpful for me as I examine areas of my life. From my perspective, looking at what happened in both the DL committee process and then the Wiley process, I don't believe that the intention was for staff or families to feel unvalued, ignored, or misled. But from what I gathered from many, that seems to be the impact on some of them. The process that you chose in both situations, while different, led to some broken trust. I've heard some explanations of why decisions were made, but it was also usually met with the reality that it didn't actually work out to the outcome you hoped for in the end. I asked some of you to speak to what you can prior to the committee starting because I feared it would interfere with the work we were asked to do. And unfortunately, I think it did. Many teachers did not want to be a part of the committee from elementary, and some parents declined. And I think it was because they didn't trust that people wanted to hear what they had to say. Some of them had felt firsthand, and some had watched secondhand as decisions were made that impacted them without sufficient time or warning or conversations. I believe in order to best serve our students that we as a community, admin, board, staff, families, and community members must trust each other. We will continue to get in our own way if we attempt to carry on without addressing how we got here. So I ask you, board and admin, to start with your relationship with each other, and then I think relationship with elementary staff. We have so much work to do, and we have so many great students, and they will need all of us to get it done. Thank you.
Thank you. Nathan Turner? Oh, sorry, Nathan Tanners. Pardon me, I need my glasses on.
You're good. My handwriting is not great, so. Good evening. I don't have any sort of prepared statement or anything, but I just had 2 things that I wanted to share that have been on my mind, and then with conversations with other people that I thought I would share, on their behalf. One of which was related to the closing of Wiley, and that just had to do with some of the teachers and staff feeling like they were expedited out of the building extremely quickly, and parents who devoted tens of hours in the last 2 weeks of school to help teachers move their belongings out of the classrooms, and to ensure that the building could be closed up on the last day. And I know that the building has just sat all summer, which I know was expected, but also I think that made a lot of people feel upset, I'd say, because they felt like they were being disrespected in terms of, I think it made it a difficult situation even harder for a lot of people, just in terms of feeling like they were being pushed out as opposed to being helped out. But the other thing that I was going to add was, I know Dr. Ivory Tatum has seen the the lines of cars at Thomas Paine, because she's been graciously, helping out with the pickup and drop off and things like that. But speaking with some other parents in our immediate neighborhood, that it's pretty close within walking distance of Wiley. I know that Mike already spoke about crossing guards, which has been a concern, and that's one reason why I think a lot of people recently have not been letting their kids walk to school. But I think there's wonderings about a potential bus, and maybe an added bus route, maybe at or near Wiley, where people could feel comfortable walking their kids to in the morning, which would help out a lot with both drop-off and pickup times for parents who have busy schedules, and maybe also alleviate some of the traffic needs, before and after school. Again, I don't know what the possibilities are, but I just thought I would throw that out there as something that we've been talking about, and I don't know what the district's resources or budget could accommodate, but I think that there would be people who would be interested in a potential bus if that was an option. And then that's all I've got for tonight, but I just wanted to share those things. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Tanner. The last request I have tonight is from Rob Dennett. If anybody else would like to make a statement before the board, there are Golden Rush sheets over in the corner. Please fill one out and hand it to Lori Johnson.
Hi, everybody. I do not have any prepared remarks either this evening, but I did, just on my way passing by, wanted to make a quick comment about FOIA requests. My name, by the way, is Rob Bennett. I am an Urbana parent, formerly a Wiley parent. There was a comment made a little bit ago about FOIA requests and how those things were perceived to be unduly burdening the administration. I have not personally filed any FOIA requests. I did request to join the Facilities Committee, and by the way, I want to thank everyone here and not here who was involved in that committee. That was an unbelievable undertaking. Thank you for serving your community in that regard. I was one of a number of Wiley parents that applied to be on that committee and was, for whatever reason, not approved to be part of that process. And I did attend a few meetings as I could this summer, but of course without much of a voice in that process, kind of didn't make a lot of sense to continue attending. But I am aware, despite not having filed any FOIA requests myself, of a number of Wiley parents, Urbana parents, community members at large, and even PACs who have filed FOIA requests with the administration. And I just want to say that while those requests may require work on the part of the administration, I think one recurring theme that we've heard, at least since last fall, if not earlier, but certainly since the closure of Wiley as it began in February, is transparency. And if you would like to reduce the number of FOIA requests that are coming to your door from concerned citizens who are not receiving information through your processes, through your board meetings, through your publications, and through your communications with the community at large, one way to reduce that burden is to simply be more transparent. as an administration with the community you are serving. I know that a lot of those FOIA requests probably stemmed from that perception that information was not being made clear to the public in regards to the Wiley closure, in regards to the dual language events that occurred last fall, in regards to the facilities committee, right? A lot of these FOIA requests stem from a perception that information is not being made available in an honest, efficient, appropriately clear manner to the community. So that's all I wanted to say. I believe those FOIA requests will continue as long as the administration and indeed the board's handling of issues and communications with the public continues to be kind of close to the chest. All right. Well, thank you. That's all I had to say.
Thank you. One last call. Anybody else like to make a statement before the board tonight? All right. Thank you. We'll move on. Our first action item tonight is appointment of our student ambassadors.
A little bit about, and of course I got out of the document. Sorry. And now I'm not on the Wi-Fi anymore. Do you know why we're getting kicked off the Wi-Fi, John? Yeah. Yeah, I can't pull up the policy because I'm not on the Wi-Fi anymore. Okay, well, I was going to review our, looks like it's pulling me back up now. Give you just a little background about our student ambassador program, and there we go. I got it finally. Thank you. So tonight we're going to swear in our two new student ambassadors, Dominica and Paulina, just to give the public a little bit of information about the student ambassador program. Both of our students tonight went through a pretty strenuous, I'd say, application process this spring. We had a large selection committee, mostly comprising of staff from UHS, teachers, administrators, counselors. A couple, I think, district administrators also participated who work with the high school, but primarily high school folks. There was a screening process. There was an application process. We narrowed down the applicants to about 5 students who were interviewed. We had board members who participated in the interview process with the superintendent, and one of our former student ambassadors also participated in the interview process, and Dominica and Paulina were selected. They will attend regular meetings. I will meet with them pretty regularly to review board meetings. They will have an agenda item on the board agenda where they can share happenings from UHS. They can share, they're both involved in several student groups, so they can also bring student interests, student groups forward to the board just for information purposes. We also ask that they share student viewpoints when there are issues happening at the high school that we may not be aware of. And again, they are here to represent all of our students, specifically our students at UHS. They are here to serve as a resource to the board, so we encourage board members, if there are things that we're discussing where you would appreciate a student perspective, that's another reason why they're here, to really answer questions and to be that student voice perspective for board members who just want to know from a kid, right, or from a young person. We'll review the packet with them so they are aware prior to meetings what we're discussing, and they are non-voting members. So as we've discussed, they are not granted voting privileges, but they do attend meetings and they can comment on individual topics, on specific situations that we discuss as a board.
but they are not allowed to vote on those. They won't participate in closed session meetings, and they'll only be here for our open meetings. So in the event a student is unable to attend, we had an alternate. We don't have an alternate this time. We're going to do our best to make sure that at least one of them are here. Like I said, they're both very involved in lots of activities and on teams and clubs. So I know their schedules are going to get really busy once school is up and going. So we'll try to make sure that we coordinate. So at least if one is at a band concert or the other one has a game or something, that we can kind of make sure that at least one of them is able to attend at all times. So I think that's it. Questions? I know we have some new board members who were not here when we started the Student Ambassador Program. Hopefully that answers most of your questions. If not, okay.
No, if not, the chair would entertain a motion to appoint Dominica Turner Winston and Paulina Angrave to be our student ambassadors. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor say aye. Any opposed? All right, thank you. We'll move on to the oath of office. Grab the mic like this. Okay. So, yeah, go put a mic like this near your mouth so we can. Yeah, so there's a little green button on here. You tap it once, it turns. There you go, and just kind of hold it near your mouth so share it. So, I say your name.
I, Dominica Turner Winston,
I, Paulina Angrave,
Do solemnly swear or affirm.
do solemnly swear or affirm
You guys can say it in tandem too if you want. That I will faithfully discharge the duties of student ambassador
that I will faithfully discharge the duties of student ambassador
to the Board of Education of Urbana School District 116
to the Board of Education of Urbana School District 116
in accordance with the policies of the Board of Education.
in
accordance
with
to the policies of the Board of Education.
I further swear or affirm
I further swear or affirm
that I shall acknowledge and respect
that I shall encourage
encourage
and respect the-
respect
the free expression
the free expression of opinion by myself and board members
the free expression of opinion by myself and board members
and others who seek a hearing before the board.
and others who seek a hearing before the board.
Welcome. Thank you so much for your service. Okay. There is no call for an executive session after tonight's meeting. Is there a student ambassador report tonight? No? Okay. We'll get you next time. Our first administrative report tonight is on our equity action plan. Dr. Caffey.
Good evening. Tonight, I, along with the members of the District Equity Leadership Team, will share with you our Equity Action Plan for the 2023-2024 academic school year. As many of you are aware, this summer we received the final equity audit from Dr. Dubiel in Systemic Equity. Upon receiving that final report, the District Equity Leadership Team began meeting this summer to draft our Equity Action Plan. Just to review and give those in attendance and those watching just a little bit of our historical efforts in regards to equity. Urbana School District has a long history in terms of trying to achieve equity in the school district. If we examine our historical records, we have evidence dating back to 1994 that the district developed a comprehensive district plan for at-risk students. 4 years later, in 1998, the district conducted its first educational equity audit. Between 1998 and 2016, there's been various initiatives, various workshops, professional development that's been conducted by the school district in order to achieve equity. Most of those efforts, however, were without any kind of sustainable action plan. Which leads us to 2021 when the board saw fit to establish the Equity Task Force. Out of that task force, one of the recommendations to the board was that we needed to conduct a more recent equity audit. So now that the audit was approved and has been completed, we are moving forward with what we have developed into an equity action plan. The Equity Action Plan is intended to be an accountability framework to identify, measure, and sustain actions to advance equity in USD 116. It is a collaborative process developed with district stakeholders and relies on systemic commitment to best serve all students. The district equity leadership team has not only district administrators, but teachers and parents as well on our team. Here, and probably in front of you, you can see a list of the individuals that have served on the DELT, and these individuals will also be introduced later as each strand leader comes up to present. For your benefit right now, you need to know that our Equity Action Plan is broken down into 5 components, which we refer to as strands. Our Equity Action Plan examines our systems, our teaching and learning, student voice, climate and culture, professional learning, and last but not least, family and community agency. At this time, we will receive the strand leader for our systems, Dr. Wiemelt.
Good evening. So I am the strand leader for the systems strand, as you can see. And the systems is one of the 5 strands of systemic equity as being presented this evening. And really the way in which we talk about the systems strand is it's the accountability arm or the accountability strand to ensure that our equity action plan is completed and implemented with fidelity. And so I'm leading that charge with that group, but the definition as defined by the equity audit framework is the systemic and continuous development toward advancing equity. So thinking about policies, broader processes and procedures, as well as the decision-making systems and ultimately the fiscal responsibilities and how we pay for the implementation and improvement of systemic equity. Oops, I hit the wrong button, sorry. Still wrong button. I hit this, don't I? There we go. So members in this specific strand are Dr. Franklin and Mr. Gutzmer, Dr. Avery Tatum, Beth Ladd, Shauna Shear, Nate Wall, and myself. And so you can see our roles there. We're all different staff members at different levels, at different positions throughout the district. And so our first objective, we have smaller objectives within each strand, as you'll see, as you've already seen, and you'll receive in the presentation this evening. One of the big ones is the developing strategies to recruit and retain specialized staff and continue efforts to diversify staff. And so I'm not going to read every word, but as you can see, every objective within each strand will have a measure and an alignment piece. And so the measure in particular is retaining 80% or higher of our current specialized and diverse staff members. And specialized meaning all the different types of roles and positions, hard to fill, so on and so forth that we have, as well as the diversity of staff members across the different aspects of diversity and equity. And so the alignment piece is looking and utilizing our talent ed systems, increasing the retention percentage of our diverse members, and increasing percentage of affinity group participation, which was started last year under Dr. Caffey's leadership, and we're wanting to grow that and improve that as we move forward. Of course, there'll be time for questions, so I'm just going to go through each slide, and at the end, we can discuss further. Objective 1.2 is tackling, adopting, reinventing the district equity board policy. And so we'll be working with the Board of Education to officially adopt the policy that was from December 2020, by December 2023, excuse me, so an updated policy as it relates to equity work in our district. And the alignment piece will be informing a new mission statement as part of the strategic planning that is forthcoming, a new board policy related to this particular strand in our equity action plan, as well as new policy and procedures for reporting incidences of bias across all stakeholders across the community within our district and outside of our district. Objective 1.3 really hits the systems piece, evaluating and updating policies, data collection systems, communication and instructional practices for barriers to access and full engagement. So this came out both in the program evaluation of our dual language program as well as our equity audit, that we need to have stronger and better systems for analyzing, utilizing data, and using that data to inform instruction, to inform improvements in our district on a more holistic scale and more transparent scale. And so looking at that piece, our district leadership teams will be meeting quarterly to review district-wide data, the processes and procedures and progress towards student achievement, meeting our goals, as well as this consistent tool for data collection, analysis, and planning. So really trying to strengthen the data piece as it relates to student improvement, student learning. Lastly, the alignment piece. We do have our monthly superintendent cabinet meetings where we will be reviewing the work of each strand and the broader equity action plan. A monitoring tool for accountability. As I mentioned, our strand, this first strand, is about the accountability arm. So making sure that all the remaining strands that you hear from tonight are doing their work and being held accountable to that work, as well as providing time and space in other meetings with every stakeholder in leadership roles, principals, assistant principals, et cetera, to be working towards our goals, working towards our equity action plan, and updating the plan as we move forward. The last part of my section of our strand is 1.4, the financial backing. So we also view our role as when the other strands need finances or resources to accomplish their goals, we're the group that will be reviewing those proposals, reviewing the work, and then working with Katie and the district business office to implement or the funding piece that's needed for each goal and objective. And so we'll be aligning our district budget, including stipends as necessary for any member that's working outside their contractual time, as well as a broader systemic Google form where strand leaders can request those resources and financial support and use that as a way to hold each other accountable to implementing. So that was our last objective of our strand. The next strand is teaching and learning. And of course, I can come back up for questions about strand 1 at the end. Next.
Okay, good evening, everyone. I have the pleasure of sharing the second strand, teaching and learning. And this work is really encouraging because, as Dr. Wiemelt even said, there is a check and balance among all of the strands as we are meeting often and reviewing the data aligned to the goals that you will see that's outlined among each one of these strands. So teaching and learning is to intentionally embed equity-driven pedagogy throughout curriculum, instruction, assessment, and ensuring that academic programming is advancing equity among all students. So on this, on the teaching and learning strands, we were comprised of administrators, myself, Adriana Choa, Elizabeth Smith Andre, instructional coach at the high school, Erica Uscali, and Seema Thurman, who's new on board as principal of Yankee Ridge. Going back here. Maybe. Two more. Okay. So looking at the first goal, teaching and learning contains a few objectives, but they encompass a lot and they occur over a long period of time. So even there's just a few goals when you're looking at aligning curriculum, instruction, and assessment, that curriculum cycle to go through all content areas is actually typically, when you look at research, it's typically around a 7-year cycle. Particularly this first objective, curriculum mapping to align standard, scope, and sequence across all content areas. Work has been initiated through standards reference learning, the recent math adoption, and determining priority standards across all content areas. The English language arts and Spanish language arts committees were initiated in the spring and will continue throughout the school year with the goal to have a common scope and sequence for English language arts and Spanish language arts recommended by the end of this year. Examples of alignment are priority standards, curriculum map, and board policy. Again, it's important to note that this cycle takes multiple years. As evidence from the work of the Dual Language Committee and findings of the Center for Applied Linguistics audit, collaboration is needed among dual language, monolingual, and special education teachers as resources are determined and aligned across grade levels. And even in the work of our committees, whether it's been the math committee or English language arts or Spanish language arts, we have multiple representations from all those individuals on those committees. And this year with grade level leaders, working to have multilingual leaders to provide input in this work. Intentional professional development for working with multilingual students and scaffolding strategies will also be provided for all teachers. And time will be allocated through grade level meetings or department time. Multiple evidence of progress will be analyzed to provide intervention support and understanding of the whole child through the goal of examining root causes of lower performance of African American and Latino or ELL students. In addition, MTSS, multi-tiered system of support protocols, will be further aligned and developed with individual problem solving that is universal across the district. So when we look at alignment, we look at many different measures such as the Illinois Assessment of Readiness, MAP, PSAT, SAT, Panorama, and we're referring to those surveys that we do 3 times a year for teachers, staff, and families. And then also the student success piece that holds all of our data as we look at the whole child to make decisions that are best for all of our students. And then next will be student voice, culture, and climate.
I have the pleasure of serving as the strand leader for Strand 3, Student Voice, Climate, and Culture. And simply put, our goal is to consistently seek students' feedback and experiences on organizational culture and climate. I think what was very evident from the equity audit is that our students feel very disconnected from most of the schools that they attend. And so we need to address that in a major way. On this strand, and I'm actually asking my strand members to please stand if they're in attendance, we have Mr. Derek Cooper, who is the principal of Urbana Middle School, Jesse Guzman, principal of Urbana High School, Brandon McFarland, our recruitment and retention coordinator, Trisha Kasem, our school psychologist, Donardo Williams, student engagement advisor, and Darian Sanchez, who is a student interventionist at UMS. Based on the recommendation from the audit, it is clear that we need to establish a Student Equity Advisory Committee. So that is objective 3.1 for our strand. And some of the measures and indicators that we will be looking at is how students respond to our panorama surveys. We're looking to expand our affinity groups within our high school and establish new ones at the middle school to make sure that our students feel connected. We are looking to rehire the Minority Enrichment Program Coordinator or affinity group coordinators at the middle school, which we currently do not have, as well as identify Equity Advisory Committee, student structure, and identify group members. So we are looking to try to engage as many students who can give us real feedback in terms of what culture and climate feels like in Urbana School District. And last but not least, we want to make sure that we create and develop a comprehensive resource list so if our students do not feel connected to individuals inside of a school, they have a dedicated resource that they can use, that they can achieve those resources that they need to utilize out in our community. Our second objective is to develop positive connections targeted specifically at Black and African American students and or students who qualify for free or reduced lunch. Again, if we look at the data from the equity audit, it is clear that we are failing Black children in our school district. And we need to make some very intentional efforts to raise the academic achievement for our students and make sure that they feel connected to Urbana School District. One of the things we're going to be looking at in terms of a measure indicator is our discipline improvement plan. For those of you who were in attendance at opening day, I spoke to the fact that Urbana is currently in the top 20% district-wide or statewide in terms of our exclusionary practices, suspensions and expulsions. We have to reduce those numbers. We have to effectively reduce our dropout rates. We are losing far too many students. One is too many, but our numbers are absurd. And we need to increase our attendance rates. So our strand will be systemically looking at how we can improve the things that I just spoke to and making sure that our students feel heard and connected. Strand 4 is professional learning.
Good evening. My name is Yvonda Smith, and I am the Director of Professional Development, and I have the pleasure of leading Strand 4 Professional Learning. Our goal is to provide a continuum of professional learning and growth opportunities for all of our staff in pursuit of educational equity. My team members consist of Jeanette Delgado, who is a dual language teacher. We have also Danielle Jackson, who is a principal. We have Guadalupe Ricconi, who is here tonight, the Director of Multilingual Programs, and then myself serving as the chair. So we have one goal that we created 2 parts for. So the main goal was to provide professional learning opportunities for all of our staff. All means all. And so the measures and indicators are provided for you also with the alignment on the slides. But what I want to draw your attention to is what is our plan. Education is one of the few opportunities that we have as far as a continuous improvement of our teachers, our educators, our teaching assistants, and everyone else that makes up the body of Urbana School District as we support our students. In providing professional learning opportunities for all staff, we divided it up in the following. On all staff development days, we would have at least one professional development activity to include providing a sense of belonging for our students and staff. All of our new hires, all of them, will receive a foundational equity professional development overview. Also, a portion each month at our building meetings will include professional development and on also providing a sense of belonging for our students and our staff. And then also we will continue efforts to make sure we are enlisting experts and consultants to provide professional development, guidance and support as needed on issues of equity and also related paradigms. As you know, we have been busy in the month of August. We are very busy with the PD department. So I want to just give you a picture of what we have done and what we will continue to do in order to strive for professional development for all of our educators. We held our Administrator Institute on July 31st and August 1st. We provided our administrators with not only topics in special education, how they could lead the charge of being an LEA in their buildings, but also we had a session on leading with equity. We were also given the opportunity to engage further to understand what LGBTQIA, what does that mean as an administrator? How are we going to support not only our students, but also our staff? And new teacher orientation, we did something very unique this year. And so we wanted to provide all of our new hires with the opportunity to get an equity overview. So what we did on Monday, August the 7th, we provided an opportunity for them to have an equity overview of all the professional development our staff went through last year. They also were assigned 2 additional trainings in our vector training module. It includes the following: diversity, equity, inclusion, staff to staff, and diversity, equity, inclusion, staff to students. Now you may be wondering, how do we get this done and how are we working on it? Well, we provided the time and the space for them to come. They were paid. but we provided the time and the space for them to come and to complete these trainings and also ask us further questions if they had any as they dive into what is Urbana Better Together. And then on our opening day, some of you probably seen it on Facebook and all those snapshots of welcoming all of our staff back to our district. We were led with the charge by Dr. Jennifer Ivory Tatum and Dr. Brandon Caffey as they shared the findings of our equity audit. And yes, it was shared with our entire district. We continued on that day to provide 2 other additional trainings. It was the multilingual overview and also the LGBTQIA overview. We also held an all-district pre-K-12, including Gerber, and our teaching assistants, because this is the first time that we've invited all of our staff to sit in these spaces, to join the special education meeting led by Beth Ladd, Maria Elvire, and also Katie Madigan. We will continue to be intentional about our spaces and our timing to make sure that professional development opportunities are awarded to all of our staff members. Remember, professional learning is a collaborative and intentional effort that we all are striving for. I now present the next strand, Strand 5.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Deanne Webster, Director of Family Engagement and Student Supports, the Strand leader of Strand 5. But this is definitely my partner in crime, Eric.
Yeah, let me do it. Come on, just kidding. I'm Erica Cooper Payton. I'm a teacher at Dr. Williams, and I'm really just here as Deon's hype girl.
Erica and I spent a lot of time together this summer working on the committee and discussing ways to increase family engagement as a district, as Erica as a classroom teacher, and me at the district level and former teacher. So we had a lot of great conversations on ways to enhance it, and we're looking forward to growing our group so that we have a few more voices at the table.
Sure. So the executive summary definitely showed that this is an area of weakness, not that we're not trying, but that we're just not connecting in quite the way that works for all families and community. So family and community as agency is to partner with families and the community for authentic, and that was a big one, authentic opportunities to serve the students, the school, and the district.
We're having technical difficulties. So our group members are Imani Carr, Assistant Principal at Urbana Middle School, Tori Exum, Board Member, Erica Cooper Payton, my co-partner, Juanita Rogers, also a parent, and myself, Director of Family Engagement and Student Supports. We have one huge objective is establish an engaging community space. Our main focus of this is to create a space where families feel welcome and their voices feel heard. We've had a variety of family engagement events over my last 5 to 6 years in this role, and we're still trying to increase enrollment because it starts out strong and we have a lot of parents come, and then it kind of dies out. And there are a variety of reasons of why we don't have attendance. Of families have multiple things to do. There are lots of things going on, pulling people in different directions. So we really want to create an engaging space where people feel like they have a voice, something that they want to come back to, that they're heard. And we definitely want to rebuild trust and establish a community partnership with not only our families but community members that pour into our students.
Yep. So just really amplifying those voices too. So we do have groups of families who come, and we want them to continue to come. We just want to bring more people to the table, and we want to make sure that they feel their voices are heard, that they're validated, and that they're valued in whatever way we can provide for that. So our measures and indicators for this, and this engaging community space we're doing through a World Cafe model, which is essentially bringing people in, having them do an initial session, focusing on one area or one objective, and then delving into some strong questions that could be open-ended or smaller. So we're really focusing on feeling included and feeling accepted within our school district. So asking questions, how, when you were a child, did you feel included or accepted? How did you not? How does our school district make you feel included and accepted? How do we not? And then we're moving on from there. So we're facilitating conversations in multiple spaces with families and community members who may or may not ever talk to each other. And then we're taking that information
and we're programming it further on. So we have, I think, a total of 4 world cafes that we are having throughout the school year. And each one after the first one will be based on what our families are telling us we want. We want to lead this. We want to know more about this. We feel like we need more transparency here. We're trying to react and program specifically based on their needs. So our measures for those are majority of participants will provide feedback and input. The focus there being not just one person talking and 10 people listening, but the majority of people really having input and engagement, active, authentic engagement. And then maintaining and increasing that attendance. As she said, sometimes we start strong, sometimes we don't. I've seen I've seen her program with 50 people presenting and 3 families come. So she's doing the work, but making sure that we're reaching more people, we're keeping them, and we're growing it.
Absolutely, and we definitely want to get input. So we have 4 dates set, and we set those dates working around concerts, band things, board meetings, everything in the district that we worked around. So we had to set 4 dates, but we definitely want to give families input on where we meet. The first cafe will be at Dr. Williams. The next 3 we'll talk about. The first time will be 5:30 to 7:30 with light refreshments, but we definitely want to give families input. Does this time work for you? Does this location work for you? We also have to think about space, but we want to give families voice, because that's one thing that we heard back from the equity auditors, that families and community partners wanted input on our decision-making processes. So we're keeping it loose. We didn't have a choice but to set the dates because they just fill up too fast in the district. But we want to make sure that to increase attendance, to increase participation, that people have a voice in what is it that you want from us? How can we best serve you, and how can we create this space? If it's just a cafe model of families rotating to different spaces, getting to know different people and having authentic conversations that they generate, then we'll do that. But like Erica said, we're going to let them dictate the topic. So we will start the first one of just community, establishing community, talking about trust, school experiences. But the next one, we want to just talk to them. And we've done surveys before in the past. Sometimes I get great feedback, and that's what in the past I've used for the family forums as the topics. But this time we just want people to talk to us and to create that space. So we've given out flyers at Champaign-Urbana Day, Jetty Rhodes Day, New Teacher Orientation. It was in the Family Focus, where we definitely want to have community partners come as well. So we're trying to publicize it as much as possible to make sure that everyone feels welcome and included and their voices heard. We are also working on inviting as many interpreters as possible to be at the tables, because we want to make sure there's not a language barrier, because sometimes families will come and then they don't feel comfortable because they can't understand or they can't communicate. So that's something that we have reached out to. We're going to provide childcare and, again, like we said, light refreshments. Our alignment are just by the board policies, the mission of Urbana, and Danielson Domain 4, which is the evaluation system we use, communicating with families. Anything else, partner?
Just that we're being really intentional with how we're making this happen. And at the end of each meeting, there's really an intention to give time and space to families and community members to collaborate, like just to hang out, exchange information if you want to, so that we have that commitment to them that you're part of us, but we want you to be partners together as well. So giving them the ability, we saw a lot of people saying, especially during COVID, families weren't interacting anymore. Play dates aren't happening. You don't feel that connection. So we're trying to build that stronger as well. Any questions for us? Yay, we never have to come back.
Were there any questions for any strand leaders?
Board members or student ambassadors, any questions for our strand leaders? Hearing none.
Seeing none, I would just like to reiterate that this plan is just for the 2023-24 academic school year. We will develop a 3 to 5 year plan at the conclusion of this school year in conjunction with our strategic plan.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Our next administrative report is from the Champaign-Urbana Public Health Subcontract Agreement. It's Katie.
To further the farm to school programs throughout the district, we last year, Solagradia Farm applied for a USDA Farm to School grant, and this year, Champaign-Urbana Public Health District applied for one. And their board is asking that we have a MOU basically for those payments. So they actually got 2 grants. They got a USDA grant, and then they got a youth services grant from the city of Urbana. So there's 2 separate agreements within that, within the packet tonight. These are still draft agreements. I sent them to our attorney to review, and the Champaign-Urbana Public Health District's actually gonna see those agreements and approve them first, and then after they've been approved on their end, we'll bring them to our board for counter approval. But I wanted to get them in front of you in case you had any questions. But basically, they are the they're the grantee that's in receipt of these grants, and we're a sub-grantee, and they'd like an agreement in place in order to pass those funds to us. So the USDA grant that they're receiving is paying for three-quarters time farm to school coordinator position in Urbana School District. That's a staff person at the district. And then the youth services grant is going to be able to fund 10 garden coordinator stipends, which is 1 at each building, and then also for potentially 3 interns this spring, if they want to use the funding for that. But that's what the agreement and the initial grant approval was for. And those would all be USD employees.
Board members, these came along with our packets over the weekend. If you've had an opportunity to look at them, if you have any questions for Katie, I guess you can ask them now. Go ahead, Sherry.
Specifically, they didn't mention the locations of the gardens. Is that going to be in the document, or?
No, there's one at every school. So every school has one, a garden and a garden coordinator. So including Gerber. And so there's one at the high school, one at the middle school. I don't know if the student ambassadors have ever visited the school garden there. And so they've worked really hard over the last several years to build those gardens, and most of that's been volunteer work. And just last year was the first time that we added stipends to those garden coordinators who were really doing the work all along to facilitate those gardens, including, you know, leveraging volunteer days to come and weed them and plant them. And then last year they got some grant funding as well to build some curriculum kits, and they're working on getting those curriculum kits out in front of teachers so they could check them out and go outside in their school gardens and use the kits and the materials that come in the kits to teach kids about gardens.
Excuse me. Will the students?
It's a great question. Joe?
I'm sorry.
Will students at Tiger Academy have the ability to participate in the gardens, either UMS or UHS? For the public, the answer was yes for both buildings, and one here on this property as well.
Thanks, Paul. Any other questions? You're welcome to reach out to me anytime, but we're expecting to bring this back for approval either at the September 6th study session or the September 19th regular meeting whenever public health is finished with approval.
Any other questions or comments? Great. Thank you. Moving on to the next report, which is a similar agreement, but with the city of Urbana. Again, Katie?
Sorry, same thing. So the USDA one is for the farm to school coordinator, and then the youth services grant is through the city of Urbana. So I was kind of speaking, when I was speaking, I was speaking about both.
All right.
So, and our attorneys reviewed both of them. They don't have any concerns about them. They're pretty basic agreements, and we have had other agreements with public health in the past. So just a sub-grantee award agreement.
Any comments or questions for anyone about the one with the city? All right, thank you. Our last administrative report tonight is an enrollment report. Dr. Norton.
Okay, so tonight, this is a preliminary report. Typically, when I come to the board, we do a 6-day enrollment report, but we wanted to give you kind of a snapshot to where we are right now. As I walk you through this presentation, you'll see some overall numbers for our schools. You'll see it by overall grade level numbers, down to specific class sizes. You'll also see, don't panic when you see, and you also have a PDF that was shared with you that are the class counts. On the presentation, it looks pretty small, but we will also highlight that in some other graphs that'll make it a little bit easier to understand as I walk through it. So first off, as we're looking at the process for 6th day, we start that on the first full day where all students come, and that was Friday, August 18th, because leading up to that we may have freshmen only one day, or part of kindergarten, and then the other part of kindergarten. So we start our 6-day count when we have all students on that first day. And then we conclude 6-day enrollment. It will be Friday, August 25th. And then students that have not attended will be withdrawn following the 6th day. So as we look at these numbers right now, we do not have, you may have students included in the count that haven't registered yet and haven't attended. They're still on our rosters. And then Tuesday, September 5th, the 6-day report will be shared. So I'm going to present this tonight. We'll come back and I'll share our enrollment after 6th day. And then in October, I'll also do a fall housing report so you can see how those numbers change over time. So some proactive steps that we have taken at this point, typically and per our CBA, we do not post classroom adjustment TAs until after the 6-day enrollment because we want to see what our numbers really look like once our students have been withdrawn if they have not attended or registered. But you'll see as we advance on the presentation, we've went ahead and posted classroom size adjustment TAs, 1 at Leal for kindergarten and 2 for Yankee Ridge in 2nd grade. And dual language classroom adjustment TAs are in place, and we have 4 this year, and that is typical. At the start of every school year, we will put those in place. And that's to comply with the ISB language, that the student-teacher ratio and the ESL and home language components of programs serving K through 12 shall not exceed 90% of the average student-teacher ratio in general education classes. Now these numbers on the right, what you'll see, that is for classroom size adjustment TAs for general education classes that we have not counting for our ESL or dual language. So we had 7, 2018-19, 4, 2019-20, 0 in 2021 because we were remote, 2 in 21-22, and 1 last year, and that was kindergarten at Wiley. And then we'll wait and see where our numbers look overall for this year. So where are Wiley students now? So when you look at this chart, you'll see based on each school, the number of Wiley students that are now in each school. So you'll see Thomas Paine has the most former Wiley students at 86. Dr. Williams at 16. Like I said, Thomas Paine's 86, Leal is 4, and King is 22. 168 students overall, so that is lower than the Wiley enrollment for last year because we may have some students that have moved and are no longer here. So overall enrollment, if you look at the circle at the top, and again, it's really hard to make this comparison because this is preliminary, but 21-22, we were at 4,103. 22-23, 4,258, and currently at this moment 4,408. And these are all based on today, so you got this today, based on the 3rd day of enrollment. And then if you look at the bar graph at the bottom, you'll be able to look at each school and see from 21-22 and to the next 2 years how that compares. So you'll see a slight increase in Yankee Ridge, a little bit of an increase at the high school, and then you'll see Thomas Paine. Okay, this is the enrollment report that will show you overall numbers. This is not class sizes, so don't panic. You'll see overall kindergarten at King, for example, is at 50 and first grade's at 48. And so we'll break that down a little bit further, but you'll be able to see overall each grade where we're at on this report. And you should have a copy of this too at your tables. So now if we look at that further, you'll see some trend data, and we will look at each slide by grade. And so we're looking at just elementary. So for kindergarten, and if you look at that lightest teal color all the way to the left for each school, that's this year. So you'll be able to compare and see, for example, that King for kindergarten was actually higher last year. Or for Leal, it was actually higher last year with those class overall. That's overall grade.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yes.
So the numbers for this year are the day 3 numbers, but the numbers for the prior years, are they day 6 numbers? Or
They are. They're after day 6, yes.
So, so some of those numbers might actually have been with the students who were dropped because they didn't either register or show up on
Correct.
day 1.
Yep, you're getting all this information early. So when I come back to you next time, our numbers will be lower. And that's why, yeah, I'll keep saying that over and over. So it's a little hard to make a comparison, although our principals and secretaries have made a lot of phone calls, have really tried to reach out. You know, we really want all of our families to feel welcome. We don't want to have to turn anyone away for overflow, anything like that, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. So they've been really intentional with their efforts, but we do have students that have not yet registered and are still on our rosters. Okay, and so you'll see first grade. And I'll just kind of go through these, and if you need me to slow down, I sure can. In second grade, and you'll see Yankee Ridge, that's where we have the class size adjustment TAs, so we, Yankee Ridge is higher for second grade, so we're watching that very close at this time, and then I'll show you the individual numbers for that in just a minute, besides just overall grade. And third grade. In fourth grade. And fifth. Okay, now when you're looking at this, and again, you have a copy of this at your table, you're going to see last year, so on one of the documents is August, September 2021, and again, that was after 6-day enrollment. Particularly, I mentioned that Wiley last year for kindergarten was where we had the classroom size adjustment TAs, and so you'll see that we had a classroom at 24 at Wiley last year, and that's the only classroom size adjustment TA that we had. So you'll see that, and then compared, that was 21, and then next is 22. What happened is where Wiley was 21, this was right after 6-day, and then after a few more weeks of school, they received more kindergarten students last year. So that number actually went up a little bit. And so then the one that's highlighted, that's effective today. So you'll look at kindergarten has the classroom size adjustment TA posted at Leal with 24 monolingual kindergarten students, and then second grade at Yankee Ridge we have 29 and 30 at this time. And then other numbers, you can take a look there. We don't see any concerns at this point, and they're not close to that classroom size adjustment TA at this point. If you look at the very bottom cell, you'll be able to see school enrollment at this time. For example, so if you look at Dr. Williams, we usually like to stay close to that 450 although when we look at their class sizes are reasonable. So we're really monitoring that very closely, meeting with Ms. Jackson a lot and reviewing these numbers as we're monitoring this. Okay, and again, these are preliminary findings. We'll continue to keep you updated. Any questions at this time?
Board members, ambassadors, any questions on the enrollment report? Go ahead, Sherry.
Yeah, I know that it is preliminaries, and I know that my question will be as well, but is there any room, like at Yankee Ridge, if you had it to add another second grade classroom?
Excellent question, and yes, there is.
Okay.
Yes.
And how many did you say are in that, adults are in that class? Did you say 1 teacher and 2?
1 at this point, but we have posted for 2 class size adjustment TAs that then would support those classrooms.
Okay.
Paulina, turn your mic on.
Yeah.
So it's green.
Yeah, tap it once and then wait a little bit. There you go.
Okay. When the students are no longer able to attend school because they're not on the register, are you able to reach out to their families and try to help support them through their situation they might be in?
That is a very good question, and yes, so even though they haven't registered, secretaries have been calling to see if they have enrolled anywhere else or if they're planning on attending. So good question. Now we continue to try to reach out, and we don't withdraw them at this point. We still give them an opportunity to come. And even if it got past the 6-day or 10-day, they are still more than welcome, even if it's past that point.
Thank you. Great question.
Good question.
Anyone else? All right. Thank you, Dr. Martin.
Thank you.
That completes our administrative reports tonight. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Anna Seaman with Public Television for running our cameras tonight. Our first study topic is the District Facilities Committee. So.
Good evening again. I'm Rakaya Perkins-Williams.
And I'm Janelle Elliott.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you for having us here tonight. We're here to present a report of the District Facilities Committee regarding the use of the Wiley Building. We just wanted to put an overview slide to take you through what we'll be talking through tonight. We wanted to make sure our report was reflective of not just the findings, but the process that the committee went through to get to these findings. We believe the middle school group will go into finer detail about the recommendation, but this is a summary of all that was done, as we did not give periodic updates to the board. We wanted to make sure we gave a comprehensive and as balanced report as possible. This report is the result of the work of many members of the Urbana community, smart, hardworking, dedicated, and capable people. Everyone gave a lot of time and effort in order to participate in this committee, and we want to acknowledge and thank all of the committee members. So tonight we'll be presenting a truncated version of our report. Starting with the background. In March 2023, the Board of Education charged the district administration with forming a planning committee to advise the board on the future programming for Wiley School. The Board of Education specifically requested that the committee be co-chaired and that representatives from Wiley be prioritized for membership on the committee. The committee was also designed to include representatives from each elementary school and middle school in the Urbana Education Association, district administrators, and members from the Board of Education.
So I know there were a lot of questions around like how the committee was selected. I just want to be clear that some of the stuff you all already know, but for the purposes of like the public making sure that they know kind of like the things that we learned, we want to share it as well. So there was an open call for the volunteers to join, and there was a representative group of all the stakeholders, which included parents and teachers and community members. There was a blind screening process. The elementary school principals were all tapped to join. Dr. Jennifer Heinhorst recused herself from being on a committee. And then there are specific district administrators with roles relevant to the process that were also asked to be on the committee. And then the superintendent and her executive team. And of course, I just want to say, Lori Johnson is just a rock star, and we couldn't have done any of this without her. So thank you so much, Lori.
We just wanted to read the charge here that we were given as a committee. The Urbana School District Administration is organizing a special facilities planning committee to advise the Board of Education on the future of Wiley School. Under Board Policy 2:150, a special committee may be created for specific purposes or to investigate special issues. A special committee is automatically dissolved after presenting its final report to the board or at the board's discretion. To examine the future programming for Wiley School, the committee will review the comprehensive needs of all of the USD 116 buildings and programs while also considering the financial resources expected to be available to the district. As part of the comprehensive examination to best meet the needs of the entire district, the committee will consider, but not be limited to, the following: reopening Wiley as a neighborhood elementary school, reopening Wiley as a newly themed elementary school with a specific focus, reopening Wiley as a second middle school campus, or reopening Wiley as a whole school dual language campus. The committee will be co-chaired and include representatives from each elementary school and Urbana Middle School, the Urbana Education Association, district admin, and members from the Board of Education. There will be an open call for volunteers via survey, and the committee's meetings will be publicly noted and held either monthly or bi-weekly beginning in April 2023. The administrator's goal is for the committee to provide its final report to the board in August of 2023.
And here's just a list of all the different people who were on the committees. The people who have stars by their names either formally withdrew or stopped attending meetings. And this is just a list of all the meeting dates. Our initial meetings were scheduled from 6 to 7:30. We amended the meetings to meet for actually half an hour so that we can kind of like analyze the data. And so the added dates, I think, were the July 11th and July 25th. And then for the final vote, because we wanted to have time for people to review the information that was presented, we added a separate date just exclusively for the purposes of voting. As we say, the board requested that one of the co-chairs and several more representatives from Wiley be prioritized. I was one of the co-chairs from Wiley, asked to be a co-chair. And then additions were made so that the remainder of the committee was like very representative of the district. And you can see here the different people in the different roles. I also wanted to note that some of the roles were overlapping roles, like community members were parents and parents were employees. And so it wasn't like very much like people had one single role. So people had multiple interests and multiple stakes in this process. And the next thing that we found that to be really interesting is that Janelle and I went on a fact-finding process that I think normally would have happened like weeks prior to the committee being formed so that we can have a complete understanding of the problem that we were being asked to address. We spoke to so many people, and we did it in compliance with OMA laws. So we spoke to the district administrative team repeatedly, right? Many meetings with them. We appreciate them like taking the time out to meet with us and answer all of our questions, like every single one. We met with several district principals, formally or informally. We spoke to the board president a lot. We had a lot of questions, and he was very forthcoming with his answers. We spoke to teachers, we spoke to parents, we spoke to concerned community members. And then after we gathered all of this information, we shared that information directly with the committee. So the first couple of meetings was literally us reporting back the things that we shared, and that took up a great amount of time. Oh, and they're also attached to the final report and the appendix. And then due to the size of the committee, because we wanted to make sure that we were in compliance with OMA laws, we broke up into smaller groups. We could have broken up a lot of different ways. We thought that because part of the charge was to let you all know what the needs were across the district, the most logical way to break up into committees, Janelle and I just so we're clear, and it was supported by the board members. But this was a call by us to break up the committees into K through 5, 6 through 8, and 9 through 12, right? So each working group was given a criteria that we came up with in support with the administrative team, but we found and developed this criteria, and we shared it, and we insisted that it would be shared as the metrics designed by us to reveal what the various data sets were that we would need. There was multiple, like literally hundreds of thousands of data points that we could have used, and we needed to narrow it down some kind of way. So we used district data as well as ISB data and school report card data in each of the working groups. And the data analysis was as comprehensive as we could do, given the time frame that we were given, and most of it occurred during subcommittees, but some subcommittees were given homework to do and bring their findings to the following meeting. And this is just a list of the criteria that we asked the subcommittees to use when talking about the needs at their grade cluster, which is enrollment data, facilities data, curriculum and social emotional mental health, academic testing and demographics, the finance needs, the staffing needs, and transportation needs if necessary. And then after everyone met and analyzed their data over the course of several meetings, each subcommittee presented their findings, and they made recommendations that we were to consider as an entire committee. And the final voting took place on August 2nd via public Google form. So as we voted, everyone's name showed up, and it was videotaped so everyone could see.
In the K-5 working group, they came up with 4 specific needs that they thought their group had. They were stronger academic outcomes, more support for SEL, smaller class sizes, and equity-based enrollment across all elementary schools. This subgroup then self-selected down to 2 options: reopening Wiley Elementary as a neighborhood elementary school and reopening Wiley as a second middle school campus.
So for the equity-based enrollment, they were talking about making the schools equal, not based on like the equitable needs of the students, but just more equal enrollments.
Option 1, reopening Wiley Elementary as a neighborhood elementary school, keeping Wiley as an elementary school. Some positives to that: class size with redistricting included. Class size can be reduced more evenly, especially in low achieving schools that will become overcrowded with 5 elementary schools. Equitable enrollment across all elementary buildings. With 6 elementary schools, redistricting can eliminate the chronic overflow problem. With only 5 elementary schools, redistricting will not be able to achieve that while maintaining the administrative cap on the buildings. Academic outcomes: smaller class sizes allow more individual attention. And social emotional needs: smaller class size will increase the teacher's ability to build meaningful relationships with students, which will lead to better social emotional outcomes. Continued impact on the district's needs. It can also improve the academic and social emotional outcome in middle school by improving the academic social emotional outcome in K-5. Students would be better prepared for middle school, which will improve their academic and SE outcome in the middle school. Equity. The equity audit identified classroom sizes as a problem in the K-5 buildings. And then Wiley as an elementary can move the district beyond the status quo when combined with redistricting and standardizing curriculum and instruction across all schools. And Wiley is an example of a success. It was a failing school, comprehensive and targeted, that turned itself into a commendable school in 2023.
So the K-5 group had many vigorous debates, and was pretty much the only group that had 2 recommendations that came out of it. The other groups had 1 recommendation that came out of each group. So we wanted to make sure that we included not only the points that the K-5 members argued for, but also the points that they, like the pros and the cons that they presented. This information is also on all of the recordings that you can find that were shared publicly, so if you want to go back and listen to them. The counterpoints for keeping Wiley as a 6 elementary school were that the academic outcomes, some of the assertions were it would be difficult in actually identifying the impact of the academic outcomes by keeping 6 elementary schools. There was also an assertion that that the social emotional needs of students could be met combined with redistricting, and it can kind of create more of a balanced staff to student ratio. That the class sizes may, I'm not really sure what this means, but staff in all classes, basically they need more teachers. It's kind of like the argument. So it's like, no matter what we do, 5 schools, 6 schools, we need more teachers. And then equitable enrollment across all buildings combined with redistricting may eliminate the perennial overflow that you're seeing every single year. And then the second option that was argued was actually an argument for reopening Wiley as a second middle school campus. And the reason why the K-5 group thought that this would be a good option is because they felt that even though it doesn't impact the academic outcomes of at the K-5 level, they knew that it would help increase transitions and supporting those transition experiences for the 5th graders, that there might be fewer classes without certified teachers if we, I'm just going to read what it says. It says class sizes without redistricting, class sizes may vary from building to building, as we just saw in Kim Norton's presentation. With redistricting, building class sizes could be more equitable. We may have fewer classes without a certified teacher, decreased access to space for K-5. And then with equitable enrollment across all elementary buildings, without redistricting, this option could negatively impact K-5 equitable enrollment. But the big question that they continually ask is that if we kept Wiley as an elementary school, how could it move the district from the status quo? And then there were also some counterpoints to that. And those counter arguments was that they will have negative impacts, K-5, increase in class sizes, if we have a 6th grade center versus addressing the needs at the K-5 level. We'll have negative impacts on social emotional needs, increased student to staff ratio. The class sizes will also have negative impacts and will increase unevenly. And using Wiley as a 6th grade center will lead to overcrowding. Some of the members speculated that it would happen at King and potentially with the overflows.
Then we had the 6-8 working group and their needs and recommendations. They were a bit more cohesive in their desire to identify needs. Within, I think it was the first meeting, they talked about options and then voted on one recommendation that they would work towards from that time on. And so they quickly voted on working towards a 6th grade center. The following needs were identified as the top needs: stronger academic outcomes, more support for social, emotional, and developmental needs, more instructional spaces and facility needs, and then behavioral and discipline needs. More specifically, when they talked about academic supports, they would hope for specialized curriculum, that a 6th grade center could better tailor its curriculum to specifically meet the needs of 6th grade students. Transition support, moving them from elementary to middle school, can be challenging, from less freedom to lots of freedom, so that they could provide extra support during this transitional period. Enhanced teacher collaboration, because smaller size of 6th grade center could facilitate stronger teacher collaboration. And then team teaching. In some 6th grade centers, team teaching approaches are employed, and that can lead to a more comprehensive instruction and support for teachers also. And continued more instructional spaces and facility needs was a very big deal. So first, the ability to have all the best resources to thrive as a student at UMS and be better prepared, but also to provide relief to the current UMS building by removing around 300 students and staff. This would allow for the current 7th and 8th grade students and staff to spread out more. Students will not be as crowded in the hallways, and teachers will have their own spaces for their instructional time as well as planning time. Continued, a designated space to better prepare and transition the 6th grade students from elementary to middle school. For example, giving 6th grade students time to adapt to the many changes coming from elementary into middle school. And then a space to thrive academically as they experience classes that are not too big and hallways that are not too overcrowded. In terms of behavioral SEL and attendance supports, it could allow for unified expectation rules and procedures, better safety measures, and improved surveillance was talked about quite a bit, safer environment away from other influences, a stepping stone to confidently transition into the middle school environment as a 7th grader, and allowing the 6th grade students to discover who they are in a smaller, more defined space.
And then for the 9th through 10th grade working group, they realized that their needs would not necessarily be met by the Wiley building, but the needs that they knew that they had to work on was improving their graduation rates and improving the dropout rates by decreasing them, addressing social emotional needs, especially those of students of color and our English language learners or second language learners, making sure that they feel more connected, the students themselves, to the school, renovating science labs, and the parking situation. If you've ever dropped off a child at UHS, you know that that space needs to be renovated. And then construction lab space at Urbana High School. So there was no real recommendation for the building, but they had plenty of ideas of what they could do with that money. And so then we after everyone did their presentations, there was a final vote. Of the 53 members of the committee, 7 members formally withdrew. The attendance criteria was 50% of all the meetings and present for the in-person vote. Therefore, 39 people met the attendance criteria. 6 committee members were eligible, were not present for the in-person vote. Therefore, only 33 people voted in the final vote. As you see, of the options, we opened Wiley Elementary as an elementary school, received 7 votes. No one voted for a newly themed curriculum at Wiley as an elementary school. We opened Wiley as a second middle school campus, received 24 votes. There was 1 vote to reopen Wiley as a dual language campus. 1 committee member abstained, and there were 6 committee members who were absent, but they were eligible to vote. And this is just a graphic representation of the votes that we just shared with y'all. And so this is a list of every single person who voted and what their vote was, broken down in alphabetical order.
Based on the results of the committee vote, we bring forward to the Board of Education a recommendation to convert the Wiley School to a 6th grade center. Some expected outcomes you could hope for. If the board were to approve and follow through on the committee's recommendation, the following outcomes are anticipated for 6th graders who have the opportunity to attend a self-contained 6th grade center. A designated space to better prepare and transition from elementary school to middle school. More time for 6th grade students to discover how to be productive learners and students. Students will thrive academically. Students will have more time to mature and learn to make age-appropriate decisions. Incidents resulting in office discipline referrals and behavioral incidents will decrease. A 6th grade center will help improve the overall culture and climate at both middle school campuses. Fewer behavioral incidents and positive culture and climate will also allow more time to focus on fostering a safe and nurturing learning environment for our staff and students. And the space will allow the whole child to grow and develop. Some additional benefits: creating opportunity for creative and innovative instruction. We can add more learning resources, improve student discipline and culture and climate, and intentionally improve educational outcomes for the 7th and 8th grade students as well. Overcrowding issues and concerns will be addressed. Teachers will have their own instructional spaces and will create safer and learning environments for all. Future indicators of student success would be measured by the following: improvements in MAP data, decreases in discipline referrals, decreases in the number of SPED and 504 referrals due to stress and anxiety, improvements in attendance and conversely student achievement because students will be in school more, and improved educational outcomes for future students as they matriculate into Urbana High School.
So before we go into our reflections, the 6th grade working group has their own presentation they're going to give you after. We did not feel it was appropriate for either of us to actually give that presentation because we honestly didn't work very closely with that group. So they can speak for themselves better than we could possibly hope to speak for them. So you will be hearing from them in more detail after we're done. And so we had a few reflections based on this process that we wanted to make sure that we share with y'all.
Yes, this committee cannot operate in isolation to the process and decisions made in the months prior to the committee. Members came in with varying positions, which is to be expected. But the lack of trust between many parties often interfered with and slowed down the work that the committee was asked to do. We did our best to lead well with transparency, but it was outside of our scope to address issues that happened outside of our committee. In the future, we believe that those issues should be addressed before moving forward. Urbana has many needs district-wide that are beyond the scope of the resources of the Wiley School Building and the $20 million of revenue in the bond. And we hope that these needs could be addressed as soon as possible as well, as I'm sure you do too.
Yeah, move this slide.
Oh, sorry.
So the decision made by the board to act on this recommendation will impact the school district for many years to come. So it's our view that more time should have been granted for a decision of this magnitude, and we hope that you all take the time that you need to come to a decision. And also, we just want to reiterate that there are many passionate, intelligent, and caring individuals in our community and in our leadership team. We need each and every one of them to work together to help achieve the greatest needs of our students. And we found that in this process that community voice has to be thoughtfully engaged and critical feedback not seen as detrimental to progress in the district. Vigorous disagreements will only make this district stronger, and as we're able to resolve the dissenting views in the best interest of the children of this district. So we have to keep the kids front and center, and no one's expecting everyone to agree, but we can't shy away from those really tough conversations that are needed.
And lastly, we just wanted to thank the district administration team who met with us every other week, who provided us, John with data, constant requests, Katie gave us financial information, Lori made us sign things, didn't let us forget, Kim was handing us data, sitting in meetings, Dr. Ivory Tatum as well. People rotated among all the working groups and offered their assistance all the way from data up to helping.
With snacks.
Oh, and the snacks and the drinks, except one meeting. But yeah, thank you all for your help. Thank you again, Board President Paul Pulowski, for guiding us and giving us so much of your time. For everybody on the facilities committee, it was your summer. And you spent it working on serving the students in our district.
While simultaneously apparently serving on a whole nother committee. So
yeah, half
really
of our committee was presenting earlier.
In the equity, so thank you so much for giving up your time.
Yep, and to the teachers and various Urbana community members that provided thoughtful and critical feedback every step of this process.
And we would like to especially thank our families for allowing us to serve the district in this manner and everyone who supported us in this time. Ultimately, I think we both served because our commitment to provide the best education, not only for our own children, but for all the Urbana children was really a high priority for us, as it is for you all. And so we'll entertain any questions that you have that is not specific about the 6th grade center because they're going to present.
Okay, thank you. Board members, ambassadors, any comments, questions? Go ahead, Ravi.
So my question, I don't know if you're going to defer to the next group or answer, but I'll throw it out here. One thing that if you look at this kind of as from a global, like bird's eye, kind of global perspective on these 3 different subcommittee recommendations, the thing that strikes me odd is, may have insight into this, that's why I ask, is the high school group just saying they'd rather renovate the high school. And the reason I say that is because like all of these theoretical benefits of a 6th grade center, are they then lost in 7th and 8th grade? Because if they are there and that makes 7th and 8th grade that much better and more productive academically and socially, then you would think the ninth graders would be on a better footing coming in, and all through high school, you'd have a much better foundation to succeed well in high school during all these, AP classes and et cetera. So, so it seems odd that they would just be like, yeah.
So I can,
No
I
thanks.
can, I can definitely answer that
Just
question.
make us a better driveway.
Yeah, no. The you guys charged us with identifying the needs, and we chose to do it at each grade level. There are no sixth grade or middle school needs at the grade level beyond. Like the needs at the high school was, we need to decrease our dropout rate, and we need to increase our graduation rate. We wanted to make sure that you guys had it for public record, for posterity's sake, because we referred back to the previous committee's facilities reports where they identified the needs in various ways. So for future committees, they'll see that these are some ongoing needs. In the high school group, neither one of us were in there all the time, but they definitely made vigorous arguments for the ways in which a sixth grade center would support and help those things increase at the high school level if the kids are coming in better prepared. We looked at data across cohorts from like 3rd grade through 12th grade. We looked at the high school, the DNF list. We noticed that there was a high level of retention from 9th grade to 10th grade, like the numbers, like there was a lot that was noted, discussed, and collaborated on that of course we could not include in here. But as far as the recommendations, we wanted to make sure we specifically outlined what it was that the high school needed right now. And right now, the high school needed to update its facilities. It needs to increase academic achievement. And, if we had $1 million trillion, definitely decongest that. But it wasn't because they didn't discuss it. It wasn't because they didn't note it. It wasn't because they weren't concerned about it.
Well, and you'll see if you look at the votes what they voted for. So we made it clear to everybody that your working group was just that. It was the group that we've asked you to work to identify the needs of. And then we wanted each group to be able to present their needs, and then people within each group voted for what they thought would be. So we relieved the high school group of doing that research because we knew there was 25 people in the 6-8 group who was doing the research to show the benefits of a 6th grade center.
And I think that, yes, if kids can do better, K through 8, they will do better at high school. But I think also, too, and I will like to say, Deion Webster pointed this out in our very first meeting, our high schoolers are not feeling connected. And that's something that needed to be in this report for y'all to know that's something y'all need to work towards. Because if they're not feeling connected, no matter what we do K through 8, those benefits will be lost, potentially, 9 through 12.
Any other questions or comments? I just want to personally thank you both. I know how much time you and actually for the broader committee, you guys gave up hundreds and hundreds of your hours and sacrificed time with your families this summer. Got an incredible amount done, really, in 4 months. It's pretty spectacular what you got done. So on behalf of myself and the board, I really want to thank you all for your efforts. And with that, your committee is discharged.
Okay, thank you.
So as Janelle and Rukaya, I want to personally thank you too. I know they were wonderful to work with. They had amazing questions. I think they learned so much about our district. I also want to thank all the committee members that I still see sitting out there. As Paul already said, you guys gave up so much of your time this summer. So we appreciate you. As Rukaya and Janelle said, this really isn't a I didn't want you to think this was like the whole team decided that we were going to present this. I think when we saw the final presentation and the fact that the recommendation was a 6th to 8th grade center, there was a lot of little nuances, even as Robbie pointed out, that weren't included, and I think partly because it's very technical information. And Rakaya and Janelle didn't really feel like they could speak to FTE and exploratory and a schedule and things like that. And so instead of asking them to come forward and present information that they really aren't experts in, we asked a couple of the middle school folks to share the information that Rakaya and Janelle did not put in their presentation. So this really isn't like a full 6-8, you know, the full presentation is in the drive. So if you would like to see all the K-5 presentation, the 9-12 presentation, the 6-8 presentation, the full ones, you can go to the Google Drive, you can listen to the tapes. John recorded all of them, and you can go and watch the full slideshow. This is really talking about the information that Janelle and Rakaya did not talk about. So I just wanted to clarify that. So the middle school folks who are going to come up, if you guys all want to kind of come to the front. So I think the areas that they're going to hit are discipline, staffing. What would the staffing at a 6th grade center look like? Katie's going to talk about finances, because again, that's her area. She's the expert, and Rakaya and Janelle didn't feel like they are the experts in our finance and our budget. So Katie's going to talk about that a little bit. We have some really self-explanatory maps in there that Randy and I can ask questions about, if anyone has questions about them. And I think I'm going to turn it over to Patrick and Derek, who are going to start, I think, with discipline.
All right, so we're going to jump up a little bit in the presentation. So this slide here. So Derek Cooper, I'm the Urbana Middle School principal. I'm going to just be adding some context that we think is really important and why we are strongly in favor of the 6th grade center.
And I'm Patrick. I'm Patrick Russell, assistant principal at the middle school. And this first slide, we just really have a few slides for you as it relates to discipline, a bit of comparative data for you. I'm not going to read off all the numbers, but I would like to highlight the fact that, and there is a bit of a pattern here, that last year, during 2022-23, 6th graders at Urbana Middle School, they accounted for 1,917 referrals, and 3rd through 5th grade across the entire district did receive 1,149, so that's well above 50% in terms of the referrals that were earned at 6th grade and the referrals that were earned in 3 through 5. That was in 22-23. And this is just a bit of a disclaimer. The next two charts are going to look a little bit different because at the middle school level, we chose to use two information systems as it related to discipline data. Because of other bells and whistles that were actually very helpful for our staff, as well as it was easier to run reports, we had the majority of our referrals entered into behavior flip, whereas we just used Skyward for any infractions or referrals that resulted in suspension or expulsion. And so once again, 6th grade, they had 1,964 referrals, as well as the 71 that were, see that 1964, that's actually was in behavior flip, and then the 71 referrals that were entered into Skyward. So that's a total of 2,035, which is again is well more than 50% above what 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade in the district received combined.
And Patrick, I was going to say the asterisk notes, that second chart is in Skyward was suspensions and expulsions, mostly. Yes.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. I thought I addressed that. Yeah, I was saying the referrals that were entered into Skyward, they were either suspensions or expulsions. Yep. Right. Now, that pattern actually was not present. You can go ahead. That was not present in 2019, 2020. 6th grade, they had 1,199 plus an extra 87, which actually was less than 3rd through 5th grade combined in the district. It was more than 4th and 5th, but actually when you combine them all, the elementaries, 3rd grade and up did get more referrals than 6th grade. One thing that we would like to note that these numbers were severely impacted by COVID. That was the year that during spring break, we ended up shutting the schools down, so it's rather skewed. But I do think it does show that there is a really large amount of need, as it relates to, what exactly transition-wise, and I'm not saying that it's all facilities, and I don't think Mr. Cooper, who's about to carry on with that, I don't think he's going to say that's everything, but it is a fair question about transition-wise in a lot of different ways. What is going on with our fifth graders as they come to the middle school?
Yeah, and having that sixth grade center just allows us to do many different things. It allows us to be able to take our sixth graders, but be able to have them in a smaller space, be able to provide more support, more resources into them. So kind of like those elementary level supports that they're getting, but also teaching them, preparing them for what to expect at the middle school level, what they'll be able to expect when they go into 7th and 8th grade. So we do just want to kind of emphasize that, looking at like our discipline numbers, that it would really, really be important to take into consideration like the safety concerns, the culture and climate concerns as it relates, and how that can be impacted and improved by having that sixth grade center. You want to talk a little bit about spacing?
Sure. This is not specifically, excuse me, there's not a specific slide that pertains to facilities, but that was talked about a lot during our facilities meetings, both at the larger committee meetings as well as our breakout sessions. And one thing that I just did want people to know, and we've been dealing with it, but the middle school has been 100% full for the last 5 years. Okay, probably a little more, but I did look back through master schedules and what rooms were assigned to what, and definitely for the last 5 years. And that includes offices as well as classrooms of various sizes. We have 36 offices at the middle school. We have 74 true learning spaces, spaces that were designed to be learning spaces anyway. And as we've added programming, and as to a lesser extent, we've had more kids. We've figured out a way to make it work, but we are doing a great deal of teachers pairing up in rooms. We even have some cases where there are 3 different sets of teachers that are teaching out of the same room. We have to figure out a way to make it work. An example of this would be we have a room off of our library that is usually very integral in testing and having the community come and do little small projects or quiet time for kids who just need a little space, and that is a classroom now. A room that probably a lot of you all are familiar with, it's our room 1520. It's our big multi-purpose room. It has been a classroom for the last couple years now. In fact, even our splash room, it's a recreation room, and it's been more for, again, a quiet place like during lunch. It has never been a classroom. It's a classroom now. So again, we are dealing with it, and if we have to continue with it, we will, but we really do have some very serious concerns as it relates to space at Urbana Middle School.
Okay, and now I think we're going to shift to 2 of our teachers who are going to talk a little bit about exploratory and on team time.
Hello.
John, can you?
Did I push it?
Your mic's good.
Okay.
Just pull closer.
Okay. Rusty Clevenger. I am a middle school art teacher. This is my 3rd year. So prior to that, I was an elementary art teacher for 12 years, 9 of which was traveling between 2 buildings, Dr. Williams and Wiley, and then 3 that were just Dr. Williams.
Hi, I'm Amy Lawrence. I'm a 6th grade special education teacher and team facilitator. I believe this started my 13th and a half year at Urbana Middle School.
Yay.
Thanks.
So we worked together on the subgroup, which was specifically for exploratory and for special services. So with that, we looked at the schedules for the past 6 years, because 2020 and 2021 was kind of a schedule that we couldn't really base anything on. So that gave us 5 solid. And then we compiled that information to come up with what this would look like for exploratory classes. So if Wiley were to become a 6th grade center, you would have 12 non-team teachers that would allow for a rotating schedule for the 6th graders. So if you're familiar with the middle school now, there's a 6th grade schedule, a 7th grade schedule, and an 8th grade schedule. One would become one 6th grade team, one would become the other, and the last would be the other. Of those 12, 4 of those teachers might travel between both schools. 5 of those teachers might stay at the 6th grade center all day because there's power in getting to know students and being there all day for your students. 3 would share with elementary or UHS. And having 12 non-team teachers would allow class sizes around 25. So that depends, like occasionally some years we have students who are really in art and then some years really into foreign language. So that kind of is where that is around 25. Teachers would use the new program spaces in the 6th grade center. Some would have to share spaces throughout the day. So that doesn't mean share spaces at the same time. That means it was used by one teacher in the morning and another teacher in the afternoon. Costs for these 12 have been added to the financial.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So just a breakdown so you can visualize that. 2 PE teachers would be there full day. 2 elective teachers would be there full day. So elective, as of now in this case, would be like art, film, tech, foreign language. So that would be decided. Then there would be a librarian who would also be a media tech. So in elementary, the librarian rotates every class through the library space. So that might be part of it, but they also may be teaching exploratory classes connected more to media. And then the 3 shared teachers with that elementary UHS, UMS would be your band, your strings, and your choir. So in elementary, you can join band or strings in 5th grade. Middle school is choir, strings, and band, and then that continues into the high school. 2 shared elective teachers, so that means they would be there for a half day. So that would generally be 4 classes, class periods, total of 8. And then 2 shared PE teachers, which would be a total of 8 classes. So of course this would have to be figured out once there's an approval. Yeah. Did you need anything from Amy for the services part?
Any questions? So we did.
Yeah, you're good.
I don't know.
Close.
We did talk about special education services some. We kind of talked about what would possibly happen with some of our programming, such things as more of when students are possibly in a program such as what we call like our life skills, or I don't even know what the technical term is for Miss Hollett's classroom, but Miss Hollett's classroom, and some of those, or our intensive instructional, which is our EBD classrooms. So those would most likely stay at UMS. So if you're a 6th grader that needs to have that special programming, you would still probably attend our regular UMS, Urbana Middle School, because of the needs that you are needed for your special education services. The rest of the special education services through 6th grade are all usually provided on team by team teachers, which if it became a 6th grade center would be at the 6th grade center.
And just to add to that, when Patrick says, we're running out of space, there's been a lot of changes in education based on, people gaining information, specifically on special services or specific programs like dual language. So that actually would provide more space for those updates to those services and spaces.
So I prepared some of these financial figures that are on this slide and the next slide, so I think that I'm supposed to explain them to you. So what's displayed in front of you is the staffing of Wiley School, just the staff costs that were in place in Wiley. So when I rolled these forward into the 2024 budget, all of these account numbers where these salaries are placed got zeroed out, but we also zeroed out all of the long-term subs where then these positions were placed. So the next slide, I think this slide, the good thing to note is that it's around $2 million in salaries to staff a 2-strand elementary school. I think that's a good takeaway from this slide. So if you move to the next slide though, if you look on the left-hand side, oh, thanks, John. Yes, I'm really tired, sorry. On the left side, you can see that same $2 million number at the top there on the left, or sorry, on the right. And that was the amount that got zeroed out from the Wiley account numbers. But then the next number down was all of the vacancies where we had long-term subs filled in. Those also got zeroed out, and then this $2 million or so number got put back in to all of those vacancies of the teachers where they were placed into the actual account numbers in the actual buildings and schools where they belong. So the ultimate savings is around $1 million for this year only. So if Wiley were to reopen as a two-strand elementary school, we would need to reestablish all of that $2 million of salaries into that building's budget again, and then potentially fill all of these vacancies again. So just keep that in mind, whatever choice the board makes, there is going to be a financial impact to reopening. And some of the committee's work was comparing the financial impact of different types of programs that are offered in that building and what the impact would be. So a two-strand school would be around $1 million, but then the next slide shows some of the work that thanks, John, that the committee did to estimate what the sixth grade center financial impact would be. And because all of the core teachers at the sixth grade level would move to that building, you wouldn't be hiring all of those positions. And so the focus was more on the extracurriculars and not extracurriculars, you guys just did a whole presentation. Thank you. All of the electives and other special services that would need to be offered as part of that building. We typically use a placeholder for a vacancy of around 50,000, but with the new teacher contract, I increased that to 60. So as just a basic placeholder, we put vacancies around 60,000. If there was a specialized position, we increased it. If it was a half-time position, it was decreased. So it's approximately $600,000 to staff the sixth grade center on top of the current staffing levels that we have at sixth grade in order to reopen that building. And that's just staffing costs, that's not other building costs, but we wanted to be sure that you had an estimate of the size, and you can certainly see that compared to a two-strand elementary school, which we're not really even talking about reopening. I mean, we were talking about reopening a three-strand potentially with an addition or something like that, so then your costs are even more increased beyond that to fill those rooms and those classrooms. So this was just for big picture read of the different types of staffing levels that would be required. Did I cover it okay?
Yep. And then I think the next slide is basically what Katie just basically said, is there would be a lot of shared positions. So the way the middle school works right now, they have people assigned at the sixth grade level, seventh grade level, eighth grade level. So there are student relations supervisors that work with all three grades. There are social workers. We have multiple. Are there three? Three. So 2 would stay at the 7th and 8th grade campus, and 1 would go with the 6th graders. So this just basically shows how part of that savings that Katie mentioned is we wouldn't have to hire all new instructional coaches and all new clinical professionals and counselors. There's 3 counselors, so 2 counselors would stay and 1 counselor would go to 6th grade. Mr. Cooper would continue to be the principal of 6th, 7th, and 8th, but we also have a 6th grade administrator, a 7th grade administrator, and an 8th grade administrator. So the administrator for 6th grade would then, of course, move to the 6th grade center, and the 7th and 8th grade administrators would stay at the 7th and 8th grade site. So that's basically how we're not needing to spend $2 million because we're going to shift 300 students over, so we would shift over the positions and the people that work with those 300 kids, basically. And then the next ones, I think I don't need to probably go too much in detail. This is, Scott Walker wasn't able to be here today, but he was kind of a guest of the committee. He wasn't formally on the committee from IGW, but he did attend several of our meetings, actually. And one of the asks from the 6 to 8 group was to kind of give them an idea of what would be in a 6th grade center. What would that look like? Mike Anderson, who's out there, is our facilitator, and one of the things that he did was took the group to Wiley for a visit, so they walked around. I remember Amy saying, well, I've never even been to Wiley. How big can middle school kids even fit in those classrooms? I think everyone had an idea of, thinking of an elementary school room. Is it really going to be appropriate for sixth grade students to be in an elementary sized classroom? So in order to really eyeball that, one of our meetings, part of the meeting, we walked everyone around. Mr. Cooper and Patrick took the 6 to 8 group around the middle school and showed them some of the space issues that Patrick was talking about, some of the offices where they're really tiny offices and 3 people are working in there with kids. So people got to see that. So I think that kind of gave a different perspective as to the space needs. And then when the group traveled over to Wiley, the Wiley classrooms, which I don't think is in here, but is probably in the big report. The Wiley classrooms are actually pretty large for elementary school classrooms. They have the largest elementary rooms per square foot than all the classes, than basically all of our elementary classes in the district. So John, can you go back? So, so if you go back one more. Okay, so this again, I'm not going to read it all. This just shows you that there would be 12 team teachers, as was on one of the other slides, some science labs. This just shows you what you get for $20 million, basically. And the square footage would be very similar to what we've done at Thomas Paine, overall square footage. So there's an admin suite and a counseling suite, and some, special small group rooms. If you go to the next one, you would see a lot of the newer things. So there'd be a new gymnasium, a new kitchen, locker rooms, PE storage, a new stage, library. There would be, just like we have been, the model we've been following at our elementary schools is updating all the fine art spaces with new music, art, dance, and drama rooms. These would be new fine arts rooms. So there would be new art space, an orchestra room, a band and choir room. And so this would be kind of the newer spaces of what we would add. So all of the map shows you on the next slide is that on the next slide, the existing Wiley is kind of that light gray color, and that is where the on-team classes would happen. So there are 3 teams, as Amy said, and as they walked through the building, they kind of thought about where those 3 teams might go. So 2 teams would go on that back long hallway, which is now like the 4 or 5 hallway, and then there would be 1 team on the by the play area, bus loading area. That would be currently like where K1 is, would be another team. All the colored spaces would be new. So the gym, there would be the admin office, counseling suite is purple or lavender. The green would be all the new fine arts classes. By adding all of that new construction to the front of Wiley, then it would generate courtyards to keep the natural light coming in. There was a lot of discussion about physical play space. I know one of our parents is here and was on the SEL part of the group and said, really they don't have recess at the middle school level, but they really still need, as 6th graders, the ability to be active and play a little. And so they asked, could there be basketball hoops? Could there be soccer? And because there's so much green space in front of Wiley, it allows for that. Where in some, we're so landlocked and our footprint is so small that a lot of our elementaries, it is unusual to be able to have a footprint this big at a elementary school. So there would be a car loading area, but then there'd still be enough space to have some play space that would be used for PE, but would also be able to be used on team for 6th grade. I think that is, so the rest of this is just basically the technical stuff from IGW, showing you using our Thomas Paine 2023 numbers. And, you know, what we paid for a $19.5 million expansion at Thomas Paine, based on everything that you just saw in those charts, would basically get us with geothermal and all those other things, a $20 million sixth grade expanded space. Randy, you want to add anything? Okay. He and I are supposed to tag team, and then I did all talking. Sorry. The rest of this is just the links that the 6th to 8th grade group found a lot of active 6th grade national 6th grade sites. As it was already noted earlier, there aren't very many 6th grade centers in the state of Illinois. It is, you know, there are a lot in Texas, a lot in other southern areas, California. So these are just some active links, and then some articles that the SEL group found that really talk about developmental needs, brain development for 6th graders, some of the anxiety and SEL needs that 6th graders have being paired with older kids at a 6th, 7th, 8th grade center. So that's what those articles are for. And I know, Lindsay, you're here. Do you want to say anything for the SEL group? Well, you got to come up to the mic.
Sorry. So I'm Lindsay Amara Boone. I was part of the District Facilities Committee. And I know earlier somebody had spoke about how the 6th grade center here in Illinois that we did have had closed, but they didn't really specify why it closed. It closed because there wasn't enough space and the building was old. So it wasn't because the 6th grade center failed, it was because it just wasn't able to be maintained and kept. That's probably the only thing that I was thinking about, and I was like, ah. But I thought that was important to say, because it wasn't because 6th grade centers are not going to be successful, just it didn't work because there wasn't the funds to fix it. So
Thank you.
all right, thanks.
And Mike, I know you made a public comment, but do you want to add anything? Okay. All right, I think that was, so again, the purpose of us doing that was just, you know, since there were, you know, 20 plus people who voted for the 6th grade center, we thought it might be helpful to give you a little more information. Rakai and Janelle did a great job of showing you all, you know, all the other things that the K-5, 6, 8, and 9, 12 people talked about. But based on questions I've been receiving, we really thought there might be some specific things people might want to know about, you know, what a schedule might look like, or what a budget, how much is this going to cost the district, and so we thought we'd just kind of pair that information with what the co-chairs had already shared to give you kind of a more overall view. So.
All right, board members, ambassadors, any questions for the committee?
I was a little bit late. I couldn't ask a question about special ed. What would the impact for the students who are receiving special ed services inside their classroom from attending and making another transition? They'd have possibly 4 or 5 transitions within their school life if they started early childhood.
And Beth left, but right. I was gonna
Yeah.
see if she wanted to comment. Okay. Go ahead. Go for it, Amy.
So, sorry, I want to make sure I'm clear. So you were asking if opening a 6th grade center and them transitioning from elementary to 6th grade, and then from 6th grade to 7th and 8th grade. So the ones that would be transitioning would be the students who are not in special programming. So those are the kids with IEPs or 504s or speech. I have an IEP just for speech. Those students still gets all their services on team through COTOT, small group pull-out classes from their special education teacher that's like on the team. The students then who need the special programming of life, like our life skills programming, some of those, I'm not familiar with where all the programs are in elementary. I know Thomas Paine houses several of those. Some of those special programs we would just automatically go to the middle school just because those programs are already there. A lot of those students don't come into the general education classrooms as often. So they would still be able to get their services at Urbana Middle. So those students wouldn't have as many transitions. It's the kids on team that would have. And I don't think it would affect them any differently than what we're seeing. I mean, I know it's a brand new transition again from 7th to 8th grade, but I think it would still be about the same as what it is now. Because the way we would probably run a 6th grade center is very similar to what our UMS is doing now, like what 7th and 8th grade would continue doing.
I jumped up here because I have a son who is autistic, and he has transitioned many a times from different schools. He was in early childhood to Yankee Ridge to Thomas Paine now, and he did it successfully. It was without hesitation. There was no big obstacles to come. I think it all is also with the staff that you have that is working. I mean, as long as the kids feel welcomed and comfortable within their environment and everybody is included and not like inclusions, I think it works really well. So transitioning to me is important as well because of having a son like that. But I think if he can do it, any of the children can do it successfully. It's just about the administration that you have and becoming a team and accepting everyone. I don't know.
Thank you.
I think one of our student in band, yeah, she wanted to say something.
Okay, so say the 6th grade center is a success. They're going to 6th grade with about like 200 kids, and then they're thrown into high school with like 2 times as many as kids as that. So how would that affect them in that way? Because I feel like high school is like from 6th grade to high school. I say that's like at least like hard of a transition, but bigger kids, harder classes. I would say that is quite much harder than the 6th grade transition, and they're going to be used to that like separation, and they're not going to be separated as freshmen. So how would that work?
Good question. So there'll be about 300 6th graders. The 7th and 8th graders around, we typically have about 300 at each grade. So at the 7th and 8th grade site, there would be 600 kids. So when they leave the 6th grade center, Dominica, they'd be together with all the 7th and 8th graders. The good thing about it is right now when Patrick talks about how crowded it is and how there's no room, there was lots of conversations about the 6th, 7th, and 8th graders and the hallways together and bathrooms together. So that would leave the ability to separate the 7th and 8th graders a little bit more and do more things on team and really work on their social emotional needs, work on some of those cultural climate behavioral needs. Right now, I know they talked about this, Rakaya said in the 9th through 12th grade group, I know Mr. Guzman is here too, about how the 9th graders the last couple years have really been struggling as they transition from the middle school to the high school. And having 6th grade center, having 6th graders in one building and then 7th and 8th graders in another building really does allow you to work on not only their academic needs and hope they thrive, right, academically, but also really work on those social, emotional, mental health, culture, climate, behavioral things. So then by the time they get to the high school, they're in a much better place to be a high schooler and kind of leave all those immature kind of middle school behaviors behind because the staff has really had a chance then to focus on those and not just kind of right now. I feel like they spend a lot of their time putting out fires and going from one incident to the next incident, but they could be more intentional with really wrapping around the kids at each grade level a little bit better.
And also, will they be included in middle school extracurriculars?
Very good question. We didn't even talk about that. So kudos to you for bringing that up. So yes, they would still be an IESA site. They would still participate in all the extracurriculars. A lot of the 6th grade teams are basically 6th grade teams, so they probably would practice at the 6th grade center. It gives us another gym, which right now is really, really hard space when we have volleyball. When we have multiple things happening, trying to schedule practices at the middle school level is really, really hard. So having another middle school size gym for games, practices, the 6th grade teams would have all their activities and practices at the 6th grade center. But like things like cross country, right? Like they would be able to meet over at the middle school and be part of the cross country team or the track and field group. So yeah, they would still be part of IESA sports.
Okay, and then one more thing. Like, for example, because I know, don't they start at, like, different times? The middle school starts at, like, 8:45 or something like that? 8:30?
8:45, 8:30, yes.
So, and then what time do elementary schools start?
I
Well,
don't
they
think
would
we
do,
changed the
they would
times
do,
at
like,
all.
same times.
Yeah.
So I know, like, when I was in middle school, concert band was a thing in the morning, and then it would go into, like, classes. So, like, you would go to your first class, the 5-minute walk to your first class. So would sixth graders be included in that? Because they don't have vehicles and buses. I don't think it will be on route for that.
So we talked about that a little bit, and we have activity buses now. So we would probably keep concert band as the 0 hour. So it would be like at 8 o'clock, and then we'd have someone drive them down to like they could probably walk, but because it's only like 2 blocks. But in the winter time and bad weather, we have activity buses where we could drive them down there now. Good question. Yeah.
Any further comments or questions? I do have one similar logistic question. I mean, we've invested a lot in Tiger Academy, and I mean, right now we have the ability to pull out students who are struggling in individual classrooms for specialized instruction over here. How would that work with the 6th grade center? Sorry, Joe.
It's okay. The first thing that jumps to my mind would be, and we've talked about this briefly in our small groups, would be we have very few 6th graders that come to Tiger Academy. It's mostly 7th and up. But we did last year had 1 6th grader out of all the students that we served. And so we would have to just get creative in how we would do that, either through an activity bus process to get them here, or we would have to plan that further than what we've currently thought of thus far. But the majority of our students last year were 8th grade and up, a couple 7th graders, 1 6th grader. This year we have all high schoolers and 2 middle schoolers so far. So it's not a huge 6th grade need yet.
Joe, while you're sitting there, I know Sherry asked about SPED. Do you want to make a comment about dual language? I know we haven't
Sure.
really. Okay. Yeah.
We've had some internal conversations also about dual language, and there's pros and cons with the 6th grade center as it relates to the impact on dual language programming. The pros would be similar to the other pros. We're a smaller learning environment, a better focus on social emotional needs, because our dual language learners have a lot of the same needs as any student when it comes to academics and social emotional. The cons, for full transparency, is concerns about splitting up the program even further and the staff even further. And so that's something that we've talked about, and having to be really thoughtful that if it does go forward as a 6th grade center, how do we ensure we have a proper and enough staff so that our dual language teachers aren't siloed even more. We have a couple staff in the program that work multiple grade levels, 6, 7, and 8. So we'd have to redesign some things there, because it would be, they could also travel, but they're not always necessarily elective teachers in the same type of scheduling. It kind of flows throughout the day in a different way. But there's pros and cons as it relates, and I think what we've talked about a lot as a small team of dual language staff is we see the pros benefiting the broader middle school community as a win and a pro for everyone who's in middle school, including dual language learners, including students with special needs. And the cons would be things that we'd just have to work through and strengthen on our own internally.
Thanks. I do have another question for administration in general. So we've had roughly 2,000 elementary students in our school district for the past 12 years. That's been remarkably flat. We've also, for the past about 5 years, had a cap on enrollment in particular buildings of 450. So if we go to 5 elementary schools, you can do the math. We're going to end up with something south of 2,000. So I guess what is the administration's plan with regards to like building caps if we go to 5 elementary schools?
Well, I think, one is we will be talking about redistricting this year. So, right now everybody is in their 5 elementary schools. So we'll be talking about redistricting the 5 elementaries. And then Kim has already kind of shared the enrollments currently with the Wiley students redistributed. So
Yeah, and we've met with administration at Yankee Ridge and DPW, and in particular, as we were awaiting results from 6-day, if we went a bit over 450, we want to welcome our families. We didn't want to have to turn anybody away, and most importantly, we're looking at the class sizes, because you may be over a little bit, but in many cases, DPW and Yankee Ridge had some smaller class sizes than our other schools. So we're really taking a look at that.
well, and we didn't say this, I can't remember if you said this, Kim, but I know in a lot of the documents, I would encourage you, as Janelle and Rakaya mentioned, to go in and look at all the links in the appendices from some of the community members, some of who we heard from tonight about class sizes. Those just have not materialized this year. I know there was several reports that, the King classes would all have 27, 28 students, and that hasn't happened. We have less kindergartners this year. One of the reports talked about we would have, 300 additional kindergartners in the next few years. We just haven't seen that. Those increases. Now, one thing that did come up, I think, at the 6th grade center is, and with the K-5 group, as there were a lot of discussions back and forth about future growth. So say in 5 years, we have 300 additional or 300 to 500 additional elementary students that we don't know what we're going to do with them. We had a conversation with Scott Walker that if we needed to go back and look at, in the future, our middle school enrollment maybe decreases, but the elementary enrollment is booming, we could always convert the 6th grade center. I know they would hate that, but we could change it back to an elementary school if we needed to, because all the spaces that we're adding are basically things that we would put in an elementary building anyway.
Okay.
Fine arts, a gym, a kitchen, a library. We'd have to go in and put in smaller toilets and smaller sinks, but that would probably be it. So if we were in a position where we saw a huge growth, in 5 to 10 years, we would have the option to do that and, return the 6th grade center to an elementary school if that's what happened. As of right now, that one of the reasons why we asked Kim to kind of share that information, just to give board perspective, is a lot of the narrative and a lot of the things that you heard in some of those other reports were like that we were going to have these huge class sizes this year, adding the Wiley students to the other schools. And yes, we do have a couple spaces that we have class size adjustment TAs, but that is, as Kim shared, very normal for us to have 2 or 3 grades or 2 or 3 classes where we have to have a TA, especially at Leo, because they only have 1 monolingual and
That was
2
a little
DL.
shocking, frankly,
Yeah.
how low the kindergarten was at Leo.
Yeah, so that happens at Leo typically first. So we weren't surprised that we need a class size adjustment TA there, because they only have 1 monolingual kindergarten. So when a monolingual student comes, they don't have any other spaces to go because the other 2 kindergarten classes are dual language. And that happens at most of the grade levels at Leo, I think this year except for 2. So, so it isn't atypical for us to have 2 or 3 class size adjustments, TAs every year. We always have the ones that dual language because of the 90% rule that Kim talked about, so that is also very typical. So I just wanted to say that out loud because I think there has been a lot of conversation about moving the Wiley students into 5 elementaries was really going to very much negatively impact class sizes, and that may happen. I don't have a crystal ball, and we don't know what will happen in 5 to 10 years, but right now we're just not seeing that enrollment growth at elementary.
One last question for me, and that is, what does administration need from the board with regards to decision-making process over the next 6 weeks or so?
So I've talked to the regional office, to Gary Lewis about this. I've had conversations with ISB, and as the board heard this spring about the public hearing process, even though we're not required to do the 3 public hearings, because the requirement is you have the 3 public hearings if you're closing a school forever and making it something else like central office or you know, if we were to sell it and do something else with it. But because it would continue to be a student attendance center, we technically don't have to do that, but we're going to, because we want to have more opportunity for people from the, I know tonight we heard mostly from people from the Wiley community, but we also want to be able to have space and voice for people from the middle school level who might want to come and share their opinions. So we are going to go ahead with the public hearing process. We're ready to post those dates. We're going to have the 2 meetings in September and that first meeting October 3rd. Those will all be posted as public hearings where people can come. And I've notified the ROE and ISBE that we're doing that. And then we're going to notify them, hopefully after the board makes a final decision at the October 3rd meeting, whether we will be moving forward with the 6th grade center or if we will be moving forward with returning Wiley to Wiley.
For the public's information, the public hearing process was remarkably similar to the public comment process. The floor is open, and anybody who wishes to speak will have 5 minutes to address and express their opinion on the matter. Go ahead, Robbie.
So I just have 2 questions, I guess, that came to mind as Paul was asking his questions. And one is just kind of a comment / recommendation, or a question, I guess. But, you know, on the one hand, you say, well, all the classrooms don't have 28 students in them, as was predicted, you know. But the other side of it is if you have a teacher, an individual teacher that used to have 18, but now they have 24, or 15 to 22, that's a big change in their own personal mind. So it'd be good by that October 2nd meeting to have some, October, whatever that day was, to have some feedback because from the teachers who have these classrooms, because they're deciding as individuals on are they looking for other jobs, you know, for this retention aspect. You know, if they have 30 students, clearly they will feel overwhelmed, but, you know, sometimes 4 more students might be the trigger, you know, their breaking point. So it'd be good to have teacher feedback, I think. And then the question is, what is the stance, I guess, at this point, or the opinion of these folks at this U-shaped table about a single dual language center? So, you know, coming around the new year, it was, we all would like to have a single dual language center done in the right way. And then now, you know, potentially the 6th grade center at this building, and this redistricting process is upcoming potentially. So, you know, on the equity action plan slides, one of the bullet points had to do with collaboration between monolingual and dual language programs. So is that the stance, that there should be collaboration between those groups, or should we just put them all in their own school?
It's a really great question. You know, both those decisions need to be made, whether or not we're going to have 5 or 6 elementaries, and whether or not one of them is going to be a district-wide attendance center for the dual language program. If we're going to go into the redistricting for elementary attendance boundaries, which we desperately need to do. So yeah, the board's got to make that decision. I would have a personally, and this is just speaking tonight, without, you know, doing full research, but I'd have a hard time going to 4 elementaries as neighborhood attendance areas. I'd have a hard time, I think, deciding to do both at once. But that's where I'm standing tonight.
So was your question?
That's what it would have to be, is 4 neighborhood schools, a dual language school, if you're going to have 5 elementary.
I'd have a hard time voting for both of them myself, but that's me tonight. You know, sticking a finger to the wind. You know, that's not after talking to the community. That's not after hearing everybody's voice on the matter. But you know, I had a hard time making that big of a change that quickly across the district.
Yeah, so what I'm saying is, if a single or a 6th grade center pushes single dual language school off the table, which do you want more?
I know a follow-up question to that is, I came late to the table, but has there been any exploration about having the K through second grade dual language classes in one facility, and then the third, fourth, and fifth in another facility, so at least the teachers can collaborate and have a curriculum that's appropriate for those age levels in one building? I know, I was late to the table. Can we discuss that again?
Back when we discussed in the past, the hard thing to deal with was siblings.
So are you asking if we can discuss that tonight? I think we could send you something in writing, like, you know, the views of the committee, when we talked about that.
Yeah.
We could definitely send
To
you
answer,
something. Yep.
excuse me.
Can I just say one quick thing? I just wanted my recollection from last December, January, when the board paused the whole dual language school discussion before the vote, was because the board wanted to review facilities redistrict, like what you were just saying, Paul, facilities redistricting, maybe one other thing, strategic plan before having the discussion and decision about a whole dual language school. So my understanding is we're still in that timeline and following that plan.
I just wanted to add that the reason why I'm asking that question is because if we go forward with the sixth grade center, then we still have to answer the question and do something for the dual language program. And I would like to see at that point it explored again to see if it would be viable.
So I think the consultants that we would bring in to help us with redistricting, I think that would just be one of the charges we would give them is what would it look like if we created a one dual language school plus four neighborhood schools. And I don't know if you remember our mapping, when we did all that mapping, several of our elementary schools are very close and walkable to one another. So, you know, I think if we had some expert consultants who could look at that and where students could walk from and move kids around within neighborhoods. You know, like I said, Leo basically has 2 dual language classrooms and 1 monolingual classroom already, is kind of what the way they're structured. Dr. Williams, on the other hand, you know, has multiple of each, which is why they're always so full. So they have 2 monolingual classes and 2 DL classes. In some grade levels, there's 3 DL and 2. So it is a little different there, and that's why their class sizes are always so much, not classes, their total enrollment is always so much bigger. But again, Ravi, I don't know that tonight the 6 people here are going to solve that, but definitely that would be something that our consultants that we would pay to do that work would look at.
So thank you. I think it's certainly worth a question, worth considering as we approach this question. So thanks for bringing that up, Robert. Anybody else have comments or questions? Yeah, please go ahead.
With social emotional learning, when I was in middle school, a lot of the kids weren't interested in it and would go on their phones or watch movies or skip class. And so I was wondering, what is a way that we can grab their interest and actually make them interested in improving their behavior and themselves?
Good question. Does anybody from UMS want to tackle that?
So something we've done new this year is that our advisory is scheduled so that every kid has advisory 4 days a week, and that's where they're getting that social and emotional learning. That's where they're connecting with that small group and developing those relationships with students, or a small group of students. Yeah.
Can we enforce the phone cages being used?
Say that again.
The cell phone.
The cell phone boxes. Can we enforce those being used? I know it's kind of up to every instructor in every room to make that call, but.
Yep. So what we've done though this year is that we're making more consistent, procedures and process across the board. So that's something that we're emphasizing in like every class, every grade level, and we have buy-in to it from our staff. So that's actually looking really good. Yep.
Yeah. One thing I notice is that students tend to be more interested when you start talking about their interests or things that they're interested in. So maybe you could do something like a survey, and then you could base the lessons off of what the students like, and that way they'll be more engaged.
I like that. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Anybody else? All right, I think that finishes our study topics tonight. Thank you, everybody, for your input.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody,
Productive
for
discussion.
staying late, too.
We have a long list of action items on our consent agenda. I'll read them through. If anybody wishes to remove something from the consent agenda, please speak up after I'm done. First up are our minutes for the June 20th business meeting, and then the June 21st District Facilities Committee meeting minutes, the July 11th District Facilities Committee meeting minutes, the July 25th District Facilities Committee meeting minutes. They met a lot. August 2nd District Facilities Committee meeting minutes, and our August 7th study session. We have June bills and checks, advance approval granted at the June 20th meeting, and the July bills and checks for the advanced approval granted during the July 8th meeting. Ed fund bills, the tune of $2.7 million. O&M fund bills for $883,000. Bond and interest fund for $476,000. Transportation fund bills for $312,000. Working cash bonds for $130,000. School facility occupancy tax for $1.6 million. Tort for $660,000. Life safety levy for $51,000. Payroll for $8.4 million. Urbana adult education for $186,000. There's another list of personnel items as typical for this time of year on our consent agenda. Interfund loans. For IMRF fund to working cash for the amount of $300,000. 12.5, we do have an administrative personnel item being requested. We also have a resolution authorizing and directing the sale or disposal of personal property. These are library books from Yankee Ridge and math kits. 12.7 is a new activity count. Mariachi Tigris, sorry, I don't speak Spanish. Mariachi Tigres de Urbana. It's a new activity count for Urbana High School. We have approval for travel expenses for Janice Nolan, Adriana Ochoa, Wendy Furtz, Erica Isaki, and Yamada Smith to attend the Teaching for Biliteracy Summer Institute in Chicago in June. We have the memorandum of agreement for the CU PhD for the dental clinic that was talked about at our last meeting, and that's it for the list of items for our consent agenda. Does anybody wish to remove anything from this consent agenda? Okay. I see. So this would be a request to approve the consent agenda as amended as described by Secretary Johnson. Is there a motion to that effect?
So moved.
So again, this is for the entire consent agenda as verbally amended. Any further comment or discussion? Roll call, please.
Member Baxley?
Yes.
Member Hasanaka?
Yes.
Member Jones?
Yes.
Member Langendorf, yes. Vice President Exum?
Yes.
And President Pulowski.
Yes, for our individual action items, first up are gifts. A long list beginning of the year. Carol Lichtensteiger of Urbana donated $1,000 worth of sports equipment, soccer balls, soccer goals, basketballs, and a basketball hoop to Tiger Academy. Jack and Jill of America donated $500 to the CU Early Childhood School. The following made a total of $13,785 on donations to Thomas Paine Elementary PTA to purchase playground equipment for the playground. The CU Autism Network, the May Family, Matco Fire Protection Incorporated, Boren Russo Builders, Kirby and Turner Masonry Incorporated, Berginger Plastering Incorporated, Satterwhite Family, Plumbers and Pipe Fitters, Local 149, Thomas Paine Family Donations, and the Thomas Paine PTA. Dick's Sporting Goods, Corporalis, Pennsylvania, donated $1,000 to Urbana High School. Edith Harlow from LOTA donated $100 to the UMS Jazz Band and UHS Jazz Band. The following donated a total of $350 to the Urbana High School band room expansion. Jennifer Ivory Tatum and Katie Rowland. Dart Containers of Urbana donated a variety of school supplies, book bags, Kleenex, scissors, etc. to Thomas Paine Elementary School. And lastly, St. Matthew Lutheran Church of Urbana had a school supply drive collecting a large variety of school supplies, including crayons, colored pencils, markers, pencils, erasers, glue sticks, dry erase markers, everything a student would need, through Deanna Webster, Director of Family Engagement and Student Support. Is there a motion to accept the gifts and send out thank yous to the donors?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further comment or discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Next up is Press Plus 111 and Press Plus 112. This was discussed at our last meeting, the list of policy changes that were brought to us by our subscription to Press Plus. Is there a motion to accept those changes to policy?
I move for approval to accept the changes.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further comments or discussion? Roll call, please.
Member Jones?
Yes.
Member Hasanaka?
Yes.
Member Baxley?
Yes.
Member Langendorf, yes. Vice President Exum?
Yes.
President Pulowski?
Yes. Lastly, 13.3 is real estate transfer agreement with City of Urbana. This is for our old facility on North Race Street. We have agreed with the City of Urbana to sell it to them for $113,000.
So this is actually a different
Am I
real estate transfer agreement.
am I misspeaking?
No, you're reading off of the agenda correctly, but this is an agenda item for a different property. The attachments for 1811 East Florida Avenue.
I see. So since it wasn't on the agenda, I would recommend we pull this and postpone it to the next meeting.
That's fine.
All right. So we're done with our action items for this evening. There is no call for future special and executive meetings. We do have a long list of FOIAs tonight. I'll get started on it. If anybody else wants to chime in, they're certainly welcome to. First up is from Tom Schroeder for any architectural documents or communications, plans, drawing, cost estimates, requirements, specifications from the last year related to any considered uses of the welding building. Those considered uses may have included but not be limited to the following: sixth grade center, renovated elementary school, whole school dual language campus, central office. From Tom Schroeder, any records submitted to Schools of Illinois Public Cooperative, SIPC, to gain membership in the organization. This should include an approved intergovernmental agreement and likely other documents. From Vince Espy, total spending on substitute teachers by school for the last 5 years. Please provide the expenditure breakdown by year and school. Number of substitute teacher days by school for the last 5 years. Kindly provide the number of substitute teacher days for each year and school. Per diem payment schedule for substitute teachers for the last 5 years. Please provide the per diem rates or payment schedule used for teachers, substitute teachers during each year within the last 5 years. Names of all substitute teachers' days worked and total payments made to them for the last 5 years. Please provide a list of substitute teachers who have worked within the school district for each year within the past 5 years. Additionally, include the total number of days worked by each substitute teacher and the corresponding total payment made to them. From Tom Schroeder, any record or communications that provide financial estimates, projections, and or analysis related to these board actions and include estimated projected expenses and sources of revenue or savings. More detailed records are preferred. From Tom Schroeder, the multi-year capital and facilities improvement plan for the district that was developed with input from District 116 staff, Board of Education members, and the community. Invitations sent to District 116 staff, Board of Education members, and the community to participate in developing a 5-year strategic plan for the district. And from Tom Schroeder, links to the audio recordings of the 7/11/23 meeting of the Facilities Committee, And lastly, the recordings and draft minutes of the July 25th, 2023 meeting. Since the meeting wasn't video recorded, I would appreciate a copy of any visual presentations from the meeting. And that's the list of FOIAs that were all processed. Superintendent's report.
Okay. John, so our first slide is just welcome back. As we've heard, we started school last week, and we are just in our 4th, 5th day, depending on what grade you're in. This is just a few photos of the band was out, welcoming back our freshmen on freshman day and some of our elementary students and middle schoolers. And ribbon cuttings. So last week, I think several board members joined us at the band room expansion and Thomas Paine for our wonderful ribbon cutting events. And then we were able to kind of gather and tour and walk around those new spaces. So very exciting for us to be able to do, to kind of unveil 2 projects all in one night. And for board members who haven't had a chance yet to stop by Thomas Paine or the band room, I'd encourage you to go, especially to Thomas Paine, so you can see what $19 million gets you. It gets you a lot. So go and enjoy that. Thank you to Mayor Marlin and the City of Urbana staff for the school supplies. They collected and bagged 100 bags filled with supplies that they took around to all the different schools. So this is a picture at Early Childhood, King, the middle school, and Thomas Paine. So they kind of took a tour and went around and just delivered bags. So thank you to the City of Urbana and the mayor for that. Caring Closets is a new initiative that is being supported through the CU Schools Foundation, United Way, both school districts, Urbana and Unit 4. And it allows community members to purchase essential school supplies for students. So there's a QR code here that you can access. There's a website where you can go in and purchase items on behalf of students from both districts. So that'll be open through September 30th. Mrs. Webster talked a lot about the community cafe model, the World Cafe model that we would be entering into as part of our equity action plan and the Family as Agency group. The first World Cafe is set for Tuesday, September 12th. And as she mentioned, it will be at Dr. Williams. So we're going to really start promoting that to get as many of our families from all grade levels and all buildings to attend. There's a new app for our weekly menus. So if the board remembers, we did enter into an agreement with a new food service provider, Quest. And so if these links are live, if you want to download the app. Katie, do you want to say anything about it?
Gotten a lot of feedback about the food being better.
Yes.
Have you guys had any of the new lunch or breakfast items yet?
Not yet, huh? They're older. Yeah, because you're juniors and seniors, so they don't have to go. They don't have to eat in the commons.
Well, you
But
should check it out. It's free. It's free.
Much better.
But yeah, no, we've gotten.
Yeah, give us some feedback.
Yeah, we've gotten some good feedback on the.
Talk to your friends anyway.
Yeah, at least let us know. It was a big deal the last couple of years, so.
I've been around to a lot of the elementary schools, and at the breakfasts and the classroom meals have been way better. And they are giving a lot more really healthy fresh fruit and vegetable options. So that has been nice to see for our elementary school students. I've heard the pizza is better at the high school. Yes. Yes. Yep. Yes. That has been a big, yeah, go ahead, Dominica. Yep. So that's the Fresh Fruit and Veggie program. You went to King, so that was something at King and Dr. Williams. So no, we don't do that anymore. But the Quest program is really amping up their fresh fruit and veggie options for everybody, which is really nice. So, and lastly, upcoming dates. Thursday was supposed to be the dual language family picnic, but because it is going to feel like 115 degrees outside on Thursday, we have postponed that. And I believe it has been rescheduled to the 31st. That is just hot off the press as of today. Yes, so it is rescheduled for Thursday the 31st from 4 to 6 at Ambucks Park, right across the street from our current central office. UMS open house is also the 24th, but it is inside. So tomorrow night at 6:30. Well, Thursday night at 6:30. District Parent Teacher Advisory's first meeting is next week, and then also next week UHS open house is at 6 o'clock. And then there's no school Monday, September 4th for Labor Day, and that is the superintendent report.
Board reports. Anybody have a board report? Go ahead, Robbie.
I've got 3 things to report. First off, just as a clarification of the past, at the business meeting in June with the consolidated district plan, when it was presented, I was told that the BPAC had reviewed the Title III grant. And speaking to the BPAC chairs the following week, they said their meeting was canceled the week before, so they had not actually reviewed it at that point. But speaking to them again today, it sounds like they did that last week. So
Good.
It has now actually been reviewed by them, unlike what was said before. Then my second point is I received a very large spreadsheet from a parent about school supply costs. And I think she is preparing that and ultimately will present it to district leadership. But if you look at the school supply lists and just compare them, looking at what they cost on Walmart, there are some classes, if you exclude backpack and headphones, at Thomas Paine, where they're in the $90 to $100 range, what you have to pay for school supplies. Some schools are less. Some grades are more like 30, but the average is probably in the $45 to $50 range for school supplies per student. And this was all spurred by the fact that most of these classroom requirements are for a package of 4 expo markers. And for the cost of 4 expo markers, you could actually buy 3 packages of 60 if you buy them in bulk. So the proposal that this parent's ultimately going to want to make is, and this might be a board policy adjustment to consider, is rather than having individuals buy their school supplies, have some dollar value they just pay and then buy it in bulk at the school level or the district level. I mean, there are things like the mayor's office and apparently some church that is donating school supplies, but the cost of school supplies are, equivalent to that of school registration. So, it's a little extreme. And then the third thing I had is I was speaking to another constituent of mine at age 10, and he, on the first day of school, was looking at, there's this alley next to Leal that is so beat up and chewed on, it is dangerous. There's just it's like potholes, but it's where the kids play soccer during recess. And because one of his friends broke his arm on that playground last spring, and he was standing there with this most disgusted look on his face, saying, "I can't believe they haven't repaved this yet." So I know where that is on the list of priorities, but there's some definite concern out there amongst the students at Leal about their safety during recess time on that playground.
Oh, thank you. Any other board reports? I've got something really quick. I mean, at our last meeting, we had an initial discussion, or I guess a second discussion, really, on setting board goals for the year. What I'd like to propose, I mean, if you've reviewed the meeting, Robbie, or not, we'd would love to hear if you have any additional goals you'd like to bring to the table. I'd like to bring kind of like a spreadsheet of goals and dates, along with a list of potential study topics for the year, come before the board at our next meeting for a vote, so that we can actually agree these are our goals for the year, and we're going to work toward them on this schedule. Is that like a plan for everybody? Great, thank you. One last call for board reports. If we're done, the chair
Hey,
will
Paul, you mentioned thank you to Anna Seaman. Where
I
is the
I
actual?
slipped it in there as
She's around the
as-
corner. All right, so this is being videoed.
Yeah,
That's the
but-
thing I've been wondering the whole evening.
Yeah, no, she's with the new building. She's actually kind of off in a closet around the corner.
I see. So it's going through like these things up here.
Yeah, but I did acknowledge her kind of as Janelle and Rakaya were walking up.
Yeah, I remember you saying that, but I was like, where is she?
Yeah,
I was
we're
like-
very
And on
very
our
happy
screens,
she's
we don't
here
see the people's
putting
faces
us
like we
on
used to.
UPTV and on the interwebs. With that, the chair would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you on September 5th.